Good evening and welcome to the February business meeting of the Council of Borough of Ringwood. This meeting is being broadcast live and will be replayed on Channel 77 throughout the week. Nicole, please read the statement of compliance.
Adequate notice of this business meeting has been provided in accordance with the Open Publics Meeting Law, PL 1975, Chapter 231, setting forth the time, date, place, and purpose of this business meeting by consent agenda resolution number 2019-11, adopted January 2nd, 2019, through a legal notice published in the Suburban Trends issue of the January 13th, 2019, and through notices emailed to the following named newspapers and posted on the bulletin board at the Borough Hall on January 7th, 2019, the Suburban Trends and the Bergen Record.
Thank you. Roll call.
Mayor Martucci,
Here.
Deputy Mayor Noonan,
Here.
Council Members Bolton,
Just barely here.
Davison,
Here.
Peretti,
Here.
O'Keefe,
Here.
Spear.
Here.
Also present are the Borough Manager, Director of Public Works, Scott Heck, Acting Municipal Clerk, Nicole Langemeyer, and Borough Attorney, Richard Klimak. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. First order of business is proclamations and presentations. While we don't have one listed, we do have a proclamation. Mrs. Spear? want to join? I've known John for quite a number of years. Before I became on the council, I knew him from Skyline Lakes. He helped us on a dam committee. And then when I joined the council in 2011, he was very helpful to me. He's brains behind a lot of things that happen. He's an engineer. He has stuff that's rattling in his head that he can spit out that most of us would have to dig into the books and really read hard. So I'd like to present, it's my honor to present this plaque. The Ringwood Borough presents to John M. Spear in appreciation and recognition of your dedicated loyal service as mayor to the Borough of Ringwood, year 2016 to year 2018.
I'll spare you all my notes of gratitude, but thank you, Jim, and thank you, Council.
Next, we have the approval of minutes.
The first set of minutes is the executive session from December 11th, 2018. All were present.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mayor Martucci,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan,
Yes.
Council Members Bolton,
Yes.
Davison,
Yes.
Peretti,
Yes.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
Spear.
Yes.
Then we have the business meeting and the executive session from December 18th, 2018. All were present.
Motion.
I'll make that motion. Second.
Roll call.
Mayor Martucci,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan,
Yes.
Council Members Bolton,
Yes.
Davison,
Yes.
Peretti,
Yes.
O'Keefe,
Yes.
and Spear.
Yes.
We have the reorganization meeting from January 2nd. Councilman Peretti was absent.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mayor Martucci,
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan,
Yes.
Council Members Bolton,
Yes.
Davison,
Yes.
Peretti,
Abstain?
O'Keefe,
Yes.
and Spear.
Yes.
We have the business meeting and the executive session from January 15th. Councilman Davison was absent. A motion?
Motion.
Second.
It is a motion.
Who's first?
I thought it was you, but I'll make the motion.
Okay.
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Yes.
Council members Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Pass.
Ferretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
And Spear.
Yes.
Okay. Next order of business is the general public portion. Please keep it to 3 minutes or less. Anyone wishing to get up, welcome to the microphone.
I guess that would be me. Hello. I am Ellen Ewing. I'm at 57 Northgate Park in Ringwood. I just have some questions. I wanted to ask you, just for my own clarification, edification. I had to write them down so I wouldn't forget them. Okay, one, I want to know, are there any solar panels on any municipal buildings or property in the borough?
No.
No? Why?
There's a whole host of reasons, but
But why?
none has worked. We had applied for several different grants over the years.
Okay.
And unfortunately, we went through Passaic County at one point, and that program didn't work with Passaic County, so that's why. We don't have a whole lot of suitable buildings for that.
Yeah, I was just curious about, who made that determination
If I could, I'm sorry.
and when?
Sorry, that
Yeah.
was a plan. We had got into an arrangement with Passaic County to put solar panels throughout the parking lot by the library.
lot, yeah.
But those specific funding mechanisms expired. There are only so many out in the state. I forget there was an acronym for those. I forgot the acronym. was.
ECRA credits,
What were they?
ERAC credits.
Yeah, that's right. But we had signed up for it,
Yeah.
but the program, the state program expired. There weren't enough credits to go around. But the
Well,
the
that's-
idea was
that's
to
good.
do the whole
Yeah.
parking lot.
Yeah, but I mean, has it ever been revisited then?
It's not available, that program.
Oh, and anything like it been revisited, any other grants or?
Mayor, I'm gonna let
Just
the public go.
curious.
If you want me to answer when we're done, I will, but, yeah,
Yeah.
we've explored a bunch
You
of different
have.
options over the years.
Yeah, okay. And then also, I was curious about, I think it was last year, there was an energy audit. Whatever happened, was that done, or whatever happened with that?
It's in the
What-
process, but,
In the process? When will that be completed, do you think?
this is,
I'm
unless the
just-
mayor
I'm
wants me
just-
to.
I'm
No.
just curious. Oh, yeah.
When public session is over, we'll give you the answers.
When what?
When the public session is over.
Oh, okay, all right. And then also, I'm curious, what is the borough's electric bill? 110, 20, what is it? I'm just curious what the borough pays for electricity.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alan?
I'm Alan Fidelli, 7 Linear Place, Ringwood, New Jersey. And I'd like to talk about the Highland Council grant program. The Highland Council has announced a grant program for environmental and economic sustainability, which is of great interest to our lake community. The leadership of Ringwood Tri-Lake Environmental Committee requests the Borough Council to initiate the grant application on behalf of this Tri-Lake Committee. The key elements of the grant that we would focus on are lake management planning. That's long and short-term strategies to protect, restore, and enhance lake aquatic resources, support lake ecosystems, wildlife, and recreational use. Now, the motivation here is the health standards are now focused on a relatively new concern, harmful algal blooms, or HABs, H-A-B. Our lakes have all experienced algae blooms for years. I've been here since 1972, and I don't remember a year where we didn't see some algae blooms in the lake. That's why we use copper sulfate. Not all algae blooms are toxic, but some are. Some can be. There's a concern when algae colony size reaches a certain level or when toxin counts exceed a certain threshold. When this occurs, the DEP can and will ask the New Jersey Department of Health to close the lake. Such closures typically remain in effect for 3 weeks because of the retest criteria used by the by the DEP. Last year on August 28th, the New Jersey DEP tested one of our lakes for HABs, and the lake exceeded the threshold and was closed by the New Jersey Department of Health for 3 weeks. Had this closure occurred mid-season, it would have impacted the summer swim program and done irreparable harm to the lake community. We have verified with experts in New York and New Jersey that these HAB tests and lake closures err on the side of caution. But parents would also like to err on the side of caution, even if the risk is small and often no more serious than a rash. If we want to keep our lakes viable, we must do a better job of reducing the likelihood of algae blooms. This grant can help us do just that. The money would be used to develop short and long-term plans for lake water quality improvement.
Thank you.
What's the steps?
First step is for the township the township or borough has to actually put the application in. Then we would work together collectively with the Tri-Lake Committee and actually put the meat on the bones as to how we would proceed with that. It's only effective for planning. You can't use it for implementation, and you can't use it for a project that's already in place. Typically, we would look at companies like Princeton Hydro and get their top scientists in here working with us to actually develop plans for all 3 lakes, so we can improve and know which way to go with it in terms of treatments, in terms of inflows into the lakes and such. So it would be over and above what we get, because today we get treatments. We just get, you look at the green water, you get more copper sulfate. You look at it again, you put more copper sulfate in. We really need more science behind that, and we've got some committee people who are working on this to improve that. Any other questions?
No, can you send me and Scott information?
Okay. Very good. Okay. And Kathy, I think you've got a copy of
Yeah, I
that.
did send this to Scott. This is something that Deborah Hoffman from the Economic Development Commission down in Passaic County had brought to our attention about a month ago, saying that if we wanted to do something, they would be helpful in writing the grant. So they have grant writers at the county level that would help us write the grant, and they said what they really need from the council is a resolution to move forward. So hopefully tonight we can.
The problem is, I want to look at the wording, because Lake Association are private associations.
Yeah.
And therefore, the town can't really,
Alan already
Well, yeah.
looked at that.
we've gone through this before.
Yeah, no, I looked into that on this, and the thing is this. The exact wording is, the grants can initiate with the borough, but then they can include nonprofit organizations and other NGOs that would be stakeholders in this. So that's the exact wording.
Mayor, I have some input if you want me to comment. Or do you want me to wait?
Let's swing. All right. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Thomas Conway, 19 West Circle. I actually fully support this grant and going after it. It's really a shame we couldn't get sewers installed when we had the chance, because our watershed right now, we're really overburdened with our septic systems, especially the old and failing ones. You can see them on a winter's day. You walk out on a cold day under 32 degrees and you'll see water streaming out of some of the yards. Our health officer should actually check that out. You can do a drive on a cold morning and you'll see the water flowing. Some houses even smell like laundry detergent. But it's a Saturday morning. That's when most people are doing their laundry. But climate change is affecting our lakes. We're seeing it in the increase in algae, also the nutrients that pour in. So while it may not be a private lake issue, certainly the storm water management aspect of this grant would help us. And other communities have made these types of changes. It really does take the whole community. It can't take one lake, it can't, even the 3 lakes and just their members aren't enough. It takes the whole community, because the whole community flows in there. Another thing I'd like to bring up is the pipeline. Tennessee Gas is claiming that they've replanted all the trees they removed. This is the same company that 6 years ago, rather than bring out this valuable timber and put it for a use, make tables, something out of it, they ground it all down to dust on site to keep the public from seeing how many trees they were truly taking from the woods. Now, I hiked the pipeline recently. I hiked it all the way from Monksville into Mawa, and it's really sad out there. When you get near the trees, or sorry, when you get near the roads, you're going to see trees 15 to 20 feet high. You're also going to see the remnants of the watering system they had set up right by the roads. You get in past that, and it's a barren desert. It's green tubes with dead saplings in there. They did not do their job, and they're trying to really pull one over on the public. Once you get back there, you'll see it. Also, they have other things. I don't even know why they put in, but there's 7 or 8 ATV control fences in there. All 8 of them are broken. It's a joke. You could kick it down, let alone it looks like someone drove an ATV through all 8 of those fences. It'd be nice if they have a function, let's fix them. If not, let's get them out of there because they're ugly. There's still straps that are stuck in the ground that can't be pulled out. There's tubes. There's other materials left. So I really encourage the council to push back against anything they hear from Tennessee Gas and ask that they actually do finish the pipeline. And the only way to really confirm that is to do an aerial tour in the spring and see how many of these saplings actually are dead. You'll be surprised. A lot of them are just pushed over. Also, in some of the wetlands areas, they have signs up because they're treating them already for invasive species. That's exactly what you fear when you put in a pipeline. That's what is happening. The third topic I'd like to talk about tonight is gypsy moths. I haven't heard anything on this year's things, but I have been hiking most of the trails in Ringwood. While I occasionally see egg masses on some of the trees, right now Ringwood Manor is the worst. If you go from Ringwood Manor down through the valley to the west side of Shepherd Lake, there's concentration, sometimes 3, 4, 5 egg masses per trunk. So we're going to see a big outbreak down there. I don't know about the rest of the town. I haven't seen them. So I'm interested to see a copy, if we get a copy of the aerial survey or the egg mass survey that the state DEP does, so we can really gauge and see if this is something the town needs to spend money on, or can we leave it in the hands of private owners. The Environmental Commission is also working on a mailing for people. Before you go spend money and spray your trees, you could probably go out there with a pocket knife and scrape a lot of these egg masses off your tree. This is the time of year to do it. So I hope you'll share that information. I'd like to look at it. Last year we didn't get hit too hard, but that area I'm talking about between Ringwood Manor and Shepherd Lake did get hit hard. You could see it on Sloatsburg Road. A lot of those trees got denuded. Getting denuded once for a tree is no big deal. It can handle it, it'll come back. But if it happens year after year, that's where you'll start to find permanent tree loss. And Mr. Martucci, congratulations on becoming mayor.
Thank you.
Ringwood needs better open space and a better educational facilities and a farming and the historic society and the historic society in Passaic County. Passaic County needs more open space, and the whole state of New Jersey needs more open space, which is the historic society and the open space and better educational facilities.
Thanks, Mark. Anyone else? Can I get a motion to close the vote?
So moved.
Second? Roll call.
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Yes.
Council members Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Mayor, I'm going to address a few of those things.
Yes.
Solar panels. We went through the Passaic County program for solar, when we were going to put solar panels on top of the parking ride, and unfortunately that program fell by the wayside. We signed up for that quite a few years ago. We've looked at different alternatives for solar. You have to, unfortunately, some of the solar you have to either use for your own facility, or you have to be able to provide credits or energy credits to make it successful. We have not been able to do that recently, and we don't have a lot of buildings. Like, this building is not really suitable for several solar panels. It's got a mansard roof next door. The air conditioning roof is on all the building here. The library is not really suitable. It's in the shade. There's a lot of tree cover for that building. The borough garage might be a suitable site, although it's basically a metal building. I don't know how well that would work. So we have looked at other alternatives. The schools, I know, are looking into some different options. They're probably a better fit, but we don't do anything with the schools. So that's really on the Board of Education. In terms of the audit, we're in the process. We submitted everything. They sent back a lot of different questions. They would like us to change some of the way We entered all, they want model numbers, they want, so we're in that process. They want horsepower numbers, so we submitted that. We're trying to get all that information together for them again. We did it probably 5 or 6 years ago very smoothly. We're a very successful program, and we intend to do the same thing. But we are in that process with the BPU now. And in terms of how much we pay a year in electric, I don't know off the top of my head. It's in several different accounts. And, I would say the water department probably uses the most electricity because of the pumps, which is a separate budget than the borough budget. But I'll give you an idea. I don't think it's $100,000, but I will get you the exact number.
If you go online, we have a budget.
Okay.
Online, you can look at it.
It's broken down into different categories: facilities and grounds, water department. It's all broken down. In terms of the grant that you sent me today,
Well, I gave it to you last month at the Economic Development Committee. We spoke about it there also.
yeah, I didn't actually get it there, but they did speak about it at the
I
Economic
did hand
Development.
it out to everyone. I'm sorry you didn't get it.
That's okay. When I got it today, I made some calls, I did some research, and based upon what I believe and what I think I was advised, we can't apply for private lakes for that type of grant. We can use it for different types of things. We can use it for stormwater, we can use it, but we can't apply for a borough grant to benefit private lakes. That's not something. And to confirm that, I called Deborah Hoffman today.
Okay.
And I asked her that very same question, and she said, no, that's true. And when she offered to do grant writing, which I said was very gracious, she said, but I really meant for tourism and that type of stuff.
Okay.
She did share some emails with you, she said, and so I set up an appointment to meet with her anyway. So I'm gonna meet with her about a couple different topics, but unfortunately, the purpose of that grant, we can't apply for that for the lakes, though it may be a very good cause. Maybe there's other ways we can augment that. I also talked about, I called the health department. I said, okay, because you're a member of the health department, and the Board of Health, and I said the Board of Health would like us to do this, and the board hasn't viewed that as a whole yet. Our health officer would like us to use that type of grant to do like a septic maintenance program, which would also benefit the lakes, and use that to try and move that program forward. The health officer and I have met several times with both a company that does a program that manages septic maintenance, because we would have to manage those records in one way or another. And we've talked to the health board about that as well, and our goal at this point would be probably to focus on that, finish that before we start yet another program, because that would be a program that would benefit every lake.
So the bottom line is, if the lake associations wanted to apply for the grant on their own,
I'm sure you could. I'm sure you could apply on your own. We can't apply on your behalf. Based upon what I know today, unless something, and again, I only made phone calls today, but based on what I know today, we can't do that. But the good news is, we can apply for something that would also help the same problem.
The stormwater
indirectly,
and
yes.
also the septic, so.
The septic maintenance program, right.
I
This
would
is a
talk to
rolling grant.
Joanne Atlas. All right. And see if it could be written up for the lakes.
You might have to wait a month to talk to Joanne.
Where is she
Yeah,
now?
the problem is, she's on her way to Vietnam tomorrow, for a month. So one of the problems with the grant money in this is it's a rolling grant. So once the money's gone, it's gone. That's why I
What's the
thought-
deadline? The balance for the
There is no
lakes?
deadline, it's a rolling grant, so there's a certain amount of money, and the sooner you apply, the better your chances are of getting into a part of that pool of money. Therefore, I thought it would be important to take action as soon as possible to, if we can't do it tonight on the lake management, maybe we could do it for the sewers or the stormwaters or the septics, if there's something else there.
I have the health officer working on doing exactly that, putting a plan together.
Okay.
Counselor, am I allowed to put together all the information and submit it to them at any point? I don't need authorization from the council to move forward. I just would need authorization if there's matching funding for the grant, correct?
Well, that's what you would need. You would need authorization to go forward on behalf of the council, provided the funding's available. You could work out the grant, and you'd have the discretion of completing the grant and then going
Right.
forward if the council so desires.
Right, so
If time is of the essence, that's probably the thing to do.
Right, I would caution you not to
Yeah.
put a resolution together until we know
Okay,
exactly what she wants to.
until you know what you're gonna pursue.
But,
Okay.
I'm kind of telling you what the what the health officer would like to
Right.
do, and it is in the spirit of what you're talking about. So
Yeah,
I can.
Tom Conway just spoke about the septic situation, how it affects the lake, so I think that would be helpful to all of our lake communities.
Yeah, I think it's a positive, and I can start that whole process, I just can't submit it without your authority.
And since we're talking about grants, if I could just bring up, Nicole had sent us the Green Acres program that just came out today in our email. And this is for municipalities and counties to apply for Green Acre funds to acquire land, develop parks, conduct stewardship activities for outdoor recreation and conservation purposes. Could you look into possibly putting in for this Green Acre funds for a bike and pedestrian path?
Sure.
Thank you.
I'll have to see what's entailed and what kind of reporting they need, and maps and that
Okay,
kind of
if
stuff.
you need any help with that, let me know. Maybe we could get, because that would fit into economic, ecotourism. So maybe Deb would be able to help us with grant writing for that.
Okay.
Okay?
I just want to finish answering questions.
Okay, so that takes care of the Highland Grant Program.
Tennessee Pipeline?
Yeah, I'm gonna walk that far end. I have not done that. I will take a look at it. So I'll walk it, or I'll have somebody walk it and see what you see, and we'll see if we can get Tennessee Gas here to address some of those concerns. If you can give me some, maybe I'll call you tomorrow, we'll give you some directions as to where you were talking about, and we'll go from there.
What about the
And in terms of the gypsy moths, every year we get an egg mass study from the state of New Jersey, and it usually comes in around April, I think, maybe March. They come in here and they give us a study, and they talk about what the options were. Last year, the concentration was in the Stonetown area of Burnt Meadow Road, and it was mostly private properties, and we felt at that point that the costs were prohibitive to do it and the property, and it was all private property. It wasn't any public lands, really. So we elected not to do any type of spraying. So I'll reach out to them and make sure that we get that in time. And I've noticed there is a lot of egg masses on the trees in different sections. So as soon as I get that, I'll distribute it.
Before we move on from the grant, with the septic maintenance program, is this something that the health officer already has in hand, or a grant would be helpful for some of the planning and studying that would go into that?
We've met, we started meeting last fall over how we would implement a septic maintenance program, what towns have successfully done it, how do they manage it. Let's be honest, we have limited staff. Our staff gets reduced every year. How are you gonna do that? And what bumps they had. Greenwood Lake, New York has a very successful program. We have a pretty good handle on our maintenance program now, and how many people actually pump their septics and how many people don't. So we're working on the pumping record. So yes, she has a good idea. We've met with the engineer, we've met with the health department, and we're coming up with a program. So I don't know that we need the study. I think what we need to do is that the program's expensive, the education is expensive. We would need to figure out, we'd have to pass a couple ordinances, so we have all of that in hand, and we're trying to implement that and bring it to all of you folks for a decision. So she would like to apply for all of those things, the implementation, and we also kind of feel like there's a lot of folks who don't think that if there's one person living in the house that they necessarily need to have it pumped as frequently as some others, and we kind of thought that it would be probably beneficial if we had like a hardship approach where you could apply for a little bit of funding if in fact you couldn't do it. The research tends to show that while it's difficult to swallow in the beginning, the government's telling you to maintain your septic, it's in your own best interest. Because as you maintain your septic system over the years, you don't have to replace it when you sell. It's a myth that every house has to sell, gets their septic replaced. I just sold mine, and my system is probably 40 years old, and it passed, but I maintain it regularly. And so I think that education's gonna be a big part of it. There's gonna be some cost for that education. So that's really where she wants to focus her energy, and it makes a whole lot of sense to help all of the lakes and to help our, and as part of our stormwater management program, we work on some of those things.
Because I think the total for a municipal entity for the year was 50,000, but we could apply under different veins. So if we had an approach where, we had, I'd call it almost like a tiered list where, if we put in an application for a septic maintenance program plan, but then also perhaps, put in for any sort of support around an ecotourism plan and recommendations that could be made for our area in that regard, as well as just possibly even lower hanging fruit and hopefully a smaller chunk of the 50K total, just any update support that they could provide for our existing bike plan.
Yeah.
So that stays current, and we're able to get not only the sustainable Jersey points for that, but also so that it's current as we go to implement. In particular, any kind of recommendations that could be baked in around, I don't know if piecemeal is the right approach or word, but sequential, so that if the plan was updated with an eye towards a rolling implementation as opposed to necessarily a presumption that everything would be tackled all at once, that might make it a little bit more executable for us.
Okay.
And as long as everybody keeps in mind that when we talk about all these grants, there's a lot of documents that go in with it, there's a lot of engineering, there's a lot of Borough Hall time that goes into them, so I would encourage us to focus on a couple of grants and let's get those done and done well, and then let's move on, because otherwise what's gonna happen is they're gonna kinda hang. And, one of the reasons the energy audit isn't complete is it needs my attention to focus, to get some of that detailed information from pump stations and furnaces and that kind of stuff. And I haven't had the time, I'm doing some of these other things, but, so what I would suggest is we should pick and choose a couple, do them well, and get them completed, and then move on to the others, so. That's just a suggestion.
Okay, let's move on with the meeting. There's no old business, new business, there's an introduction of the ordinance by title.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, this is ordinance 2901. If I could have, this would be for introduction, a motion to read by title, please.
So moved.
Second.
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Yes.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Okay, an ordinance to authorize the Borough of Ringwood to acquire property owned by E.L. Swanson, known and designated on the tax map of the Borough of Ringwood as Block 736, Lot 3. I'll recite a resolution. There could be a motion, a second, then discussion. Resolved that ordinance number 2901 was introduced by title with second reading. Nicole, it has here February 19th. I think that would be March. That would be March, whatever that meeting is. Yeah. It would be March 19th.
March 19th.
Yeah, March 19, 2019, at the municipal building. The municipal clerk is hereby directed to publish a copy of the ordinance in the official newspaper of the municipality. Again, the second reading will be March 19, 2019, 7:30 p.m. at the municipal building. Give me a motion, a second, any discussion.
So moved.
Second?
Roll call?
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Yes.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
And that's it for ordinance, Mr. Mayor.
You want to do a quick?
Yeah, this is a piece of property that the Open Space Committee and the Environmental Commission several years ago requested to be on the list for acquisition. It appears as though this started back in 2017. Kelly handled that at that time. She had, based upon the recommendation, based upon the award from the council, she had Landmark Appraisal do an appraisal based upon the Highlands standards, which is required if you're going to use Highlands funding. This is the report. It's rather detailed for the 4.4 acres on Green Lake Turnpike, which is just above Hidden Lake. For those of you who don't know, it's by the billboard, across from Action Auto or whatever that's called at this point. So she went through the process. We paid for an appraisal, and when Kelly moved on to her other job, I found this on her desk, and it looks like we had listed it in August of last year in September, and in September you authorized me to make a offer to the property owner based upon the two appraisals, because she owned it prior to Highlands. The state requirement is that they get bonus, if you will, because the property is devalued based upon the Highlands, or I'm not describing that well, but, so there's a real value and there's a hypothetical value, what it would have been like pre-Highlands, and the state will give you 50% of what the hypothetical value was back then. So, the two values are 52,000 and 92,000. Based upon the state's recommendation, they pay 50%. The funding is running out for the state. If we don't purchase this by September, they will take that money. They took the rest of our money, I think, Mayor, under last year, because we had a revolving account, but there's not that much land for us to purchase. So at this point, this is the contract based upon what you folks authorized in September, and I think that's as much as I have to offer at this point.
Yeah, we spoke on it in Open Space Committee on it a couple times. Joanne Atlas had pinpointed this as one of the properties she desired to, if we were able to purchase anything, to pinpoint it, and we were also up to against the deadline with the open space to get something in. So.
I asked for an extension back in June or something, I don't know when it was. They gave me an extension until July 31st, 2018, and there won't be any more extensions granted. So, Mayor, if we don't move forward with this, the 50% match will probably go back into the state funds.
Okay.
So this is really just the contract for what you guys authorized back in August and September.
And she's agreed to accept that amount.
Not happily, but.
All right, so the main.
So this is the first
Introduction.
reading. Mr. Finette can probably guide you through that. This is the first reading.
Yes, this is the first reading of the acquisition. A contract has been prepared. It will not be effective unless there's approval, okay? And then the contract has various conditions. Among there'll be an environmental survey, of course, to make sure the property is clean, and then the usual title work. And then you could close, but it's subject to you approving it at the second reading, and basically an environmental assessment.
Okay. And is that contract itself something that we would have to look at or make available, or is it just the ordinance that we're buying?
The contract is separate from the ordinance. The contract's already prepared.
Right.
It's a matter of submitting it to the, you've authorized the execution of the contract in this ordinance. It's a matter of submitting it to the property owner and having them sign it. But as I said, it won't be effective unless you have pass it at second reading.
The typical municipal contract for land.
It's the form we've used for all our Green Acres. I've used the same form for years on Green Acres, yes.
And how does the Open Space Committee and the Environmental Committee identify properties like this? I mean, is there a inventory that they do on a yearly basis? To Scott's point, what land is available for sale and that they're interested in buying? What is the procedure that they follow?
Generally, there's a list of properties that have been on the list for a while. I mean, we've purchased a lot of properties over the years. Got to a point where about 2 years ago, 3 years ago, there wasn't really anything. I mean, after Highlands Act, there wasn't really a lot of property that made sense into purchasing. So the Open Space Committee decided to start looking towards more recreation type items. That's how we got involved with the turf field. But then there's always some small properties or certain properties that we'd like to capture so that it doesn't get developed, or, you know, it stays as pristine as possible. And this was one of the ones that were identified.
And it wouldn't just be like in general any quote unquote lot, like it couldn't just be like in the middle of a row of houses. I don't even know if there is such a lot in town. But
No, it's gotta have something that makes sense, and there were a couple other properties in areas that we also looked at. A section that's behind what's his name? By Hidden Lake,
This is that property.
That's it.
What some of the concern from the open space was, in and of itself, it's probably not all that developable, but when merged with the property next to Hidden Valley Lake, this property could probably be something that they could turn into something, and they felt that that's not an area which would be in the best interest of our community to have developed, so. So you're right, you've developed a list over the years with the Open Space Committee, the Environmental Committee has often chimed in on some of these acquisitions, and this is one of those cases. I only picked it up because Kelly was doing it right up until she took another job, and so this is just kind of completing what we already started. And again, this is a contract that basically the property owner was gone for a long period of time, so she didn't get back to me right away. She did get back to me quite a bit ago, so I have the contract on the agenda based upon your September meeting.
And what is that formula for pre-Highlands as opposed to normal assessment now?
I would love to tell you, all I know is, I can certainly give you a copy of it.
Okay.
But
You have to get two.
I think they look at transactions prior to Highlands. and-
So they go back and
Yeah, they go back
do
in
the
time to
research?
2004 and look at those transactions.
So it has nothing to do with what we had it assessed for back into
Oh,
the?
God, no.
No.
They-
Okay.
Yeah.
You have to use a
No,
Highlands.
It's an assessment, it's not it's an
Yeah.
appraisal, I should say.
An
It's not an
appraisal,
assessment.
okay, all right.
Yeah.
And you have to use a Highlands certified appraiser to do it,
Okay.
to submit for their grants, and there are quite a few of them, but that's the only way we can do it, so.
Mhm.
And again, you guys, you accepted and approved and paid for the report already back in, I don't know, Kelly, December of the year before, I think, so.
Yeah.
It goes
Yeah, maybe
back.
16 or
This
something like
gets-
that.
This property's got some history.
December 2016?
Possibly, yeah.
Yeah.
We've been looking at this for a while. It was a matter of trying to maintain the viability of our planning incentive grant, where Green Acres had a pile of like $850,000 earmarked for Ringwood's open space purchases. We couldn't find properties to buy. All right, we would have to make a 50% match to get there. We couldn't find properties to buy with that. And they were closing out the program. So we're trying to get something in there just to keep that viable, but that's,
And this
DEP's
was the
taking
only
it
one
away.
that we were able to come up with out of all that money?
No, well, no.
Oh,
We
okay,
made- no,
good.
We made
Quite a
we
few.
made outreaches to at least 4 properties, I think.
Okay.
In that, late 2016 timeframe, but they all went nowhere. Nobody was accepting the price.
Including
And
Hidden Valley
and
Lake.
this one was not accepting the price either.
Yeah, I know she had
But
it,
this is
she
the
was
only price that's
marketing
ever
it at
gonna
a,
come.
right,
Is basically where they end up.
okay.
Yeah, it looks like we received the first in December of 17. It looks like they edited on March 28th of 18, and I submitted to you all.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Resolutions.
Don't we need a motion, do we need anything, Mr. Finnick?
Oh, you passed the motion.
Did they pass the motion to approve?
You did.
Yes.
Sorry. I wasn't keeping good notes. Resolutions, Mayor?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Resolution 2019-52, whereas the Chief Financial Officer has certified that funds are available for the payment of the current bill list in the amount of $530,162.75. The supplemental payments in the amount of $6,642,468.09, and the merchant services fees in the amount of $138.16 to be credited to the following name accounts, for a total of $7,172,769.00. I know that seems like a lot, but of that, the Board of Education is receiving $1,605,943. Lakeland is receiving $1,058,969. Passaic County is receiving $3,060,038, and there's quite a
Repeat that, please. For Passaic County.
$3,060,038. And there's some lien redemptions and so forth in here, so total is $7,172,769.00. Questions?
And how well did the county do with our roads?
Withhold their money.
I had a couple of questions. It looks like there's a lot of water operating expenses in this, and I was wondering if that's from bonding, or if that's just new projects
No,
that
these
we're
are debt,
working on.
you mean the Chase Bank?
Yes,
That's
the
debt-
Chase
That's debt
Bank.
payments.
Okay, and there's a lot in gasoline, but I guess we're working on the energy audit and electricity, so maybe we can find ways around that.
Keep in mind the gasoline that we are the host community for Center for Family Resources, Lakeland High School, Ringwood Board of Education. They use our fuel pumps and we charge them back.
Oh, we do charge them back.
So we pay the
Okay.
bill and then we charge them with a minor fee.
Okay, so we'll be
So we are-
receiving some of that money back.
Yeah, we get reimbursed for it.
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay.
And also with the, I see that you had mentioned at the last meeting that we're gonna be renting St. Catherine's Parish Center for
Yes.
recreation. And I see that there is a cost of $4,425. Is that for a month, or is that?
I would have to look at the actual bill. We were renting it previously. We rented it for years, for different times. We now have increased the amount of time that we're renting it to like 4 days a week. So that's probably the payment for whatever their bill was. I don't know if they bill monthly or how they do it. I'd look at,
Yeah,
could
I
look at
see the
actual
dates
bill.
of 1/28 to 2/20, so I didn't know if that was the time frame that this rental fee was for,
I
or
would have
if
to
it
look
was.
at the actual bill itself and pull it out, but it's owned by Recreation, and it's coming out of Rec Trust.
It's coming out of Rec Trust.
This is coming out of our budget, Rec Trust, so it goes to Finance Office, Recreation Director approves it, then it goes from there to me, so I don't approve it until after they approve the dates and sign off.
So with renting of this, one of the things we have is a creative team that we're going to be speaking to the council about, but we're looking for creative space for the artist. And one of the things St. Catherine's was great at was productions that they used to do every summer. I was wondering if that could be fit into the recreation budget to continue renting that for that space, for that.
We certainly could
Endeavor.
look into that.
Uh-huh.
Each sport runs, pays for their share of that. So the Rec Trust, if you're in basketball, that fund goes to basketball. If you're in lacrosse, it goes to lacrosse. If you're, whatever you're in. So those funds are coming out of the actual users. If you're starting
Right.
a new program, we do that all the time.
Yeah, I
We'd have
think you
to-
started something with the arts recently with the recreation, isn't that correct, with music?
We've started some different programs, we've started
Uh-huh.
robotics, we've increased, so also we'd have to do is have some group come and speak to the director,
Okay.
and they'll look at options and.
Great.
and, you know, we can explore that. You know, I
Okay.
talked at the last month about, at our last council meeting about, based upon the asking of the council, I've spoken to the diocese about a long-term lease as well as an acquisition of that particular property for,
Okay.
you know, for use for the borough. We no longer get as much use time out of Lakeland as we have to because they lost the school, and we only really have one real gym in town. This also has a stage, it has a
Right.
cooking area, it has a few offices. Our health clinics, we're in a position where we really could use a different health location.
Mhm.
So there's a whole lot of good reasons why this might make sense. It's very early on, that we're just in the negotiations where we may be able to get some type of estimate out of them as to those things, but they're not sure even what they want to do with it at this point. So we're in that process. As soon as I know more, I will speak to you folks. But at this point, we've made the inquiry, we've met with them a couple times, and we're waiting for them to get back to us. So-
Okay, thank you for the update.
And in terms of the hours that it's rented for, that's from the rec commission? Or is that just?
The rec director usually, Ryan, schedules all that. Depends on the needs. You know, we don't have a lot of programs before 5:30 because you can't get coaches there, you can't. So most of our programs are in the evening and on weekends. So I don't know what days he actually has there, but he certainly could ask for more. They've also rented it to other people, so they have some long-term commitments as well, actually, at the church. So we've had interest by seniors, we've had a whole host of people that have come forward about this facility. So again, it's really premature until I have some more information and see what they're willing to do and what we can do and what we can afford. But we do know that the community seems to use whatever space we get available, so there's never a lack of need. So,
Can I get a motion?
on the bill list?
John Phillips?
Make the motion. No, second.
Okay, roll call?
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Yes.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear,
Yes.
2019-53, be it resolved the following appropriation transfer be made in the general account on the financial records of the Borough of Ringwood. These are the February transfers. General current administration OE to elections OE, $600. Fire prevention OE to LoSAP, which is the retirement program for the firemen, $9,300. Streets and roads salary and wages to snow and ice, salary and wages, $1,800. Group insurance OE to solid waste recreation OE, $500. Group insurance OE to public events OE, $500. Utilities telephone to utilities electricity, $3,400. Utilities telephone to utilities gas, $2,200. And utilities telephone to utilities natural gas, $400. For a total of $18,700. And again, this is not new money. This is reallocated money from one line item to the other. This way, you can actually track where the money came from and where it went.
So moved.
Are these the last transfers?
I think this will be the last transfers of.
Yeah, has to be, right?
I think this is the last month we're allowed to
Yeah,
transfer.
you're allowed to transfer, so.
I
I'll
guess-
second that.
Second, roll call, please.
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Yes.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Resolution 2019-54, be it resolved, the municipal council of the Borough of Ringwood hereby authorizes the borough manager and the acting borough clerk to execute an agreement with the Ringwood Board of Education to supply courtesy busing to Lakeland High School at a cost of $38,760.64 for the school year 2018-19. I know this is already in effect, and it's going to be done in a couple months, but this, when they sent it to me, I put it on the agenda. Keep in mind, it is approximately $15,000 less than it used to be because we did an audit of the actual kids using it, and they came up with a much better number. I think they might have reduced a bus.
And when does school start? Labor Day?
School starts in September.
This is not a large priority for the administration of either school district, you know, so this is actually good that we're getting it now. They're stepping up.
All right, have a motion, please.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Yes.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes. Mr. Mayor, start badgering them now if you want to see your 2019-2020 budget come in.
Resolution 2019-55, whereas notice of bidders for lawn maintenance of municipal lawns and fields, contract number 2019-102, was advertised in accordance with the local public contract law, and whereas 3 bids were received, opened and read on Thursday, January 10th, 2019, and whereas said bids were reviewed and recommended by the borough engineer, Jeff Uhas, and whereas the chief financial officer has certified that funds are available, now therefore be it resolved that the contract of the maintenance of municipal lawns and fields, contract 2019-102, be awarded to the lowest responsible bidder, LTI Montville, at their total bid price for $52,500 for 1 year. And be it further resolved that the bid deposits be returned to the unsuccessful bidder as per the bid specification. And be it further resolved that the manager and the municipal clerk are hereby authorized to execute the agreement of the project. The bids did go up this year, but at the end of the day, we cut these fields in open space. The fields are cut twice a week. Open space is also cut. We can't do this job for that price, so I still recommend that we do that. This is a contract that comes out of the open space fund for maintenance of the recreational facilities, because that's the largest portion of this cost.
Is there anybody in town who responds? to
Nobody
this?
at town responded to the bid, although there were a couple people who were interested, and I gave them the information, but they chose not to. You know, some of the insurance requirements are a little bit more onerous, and, you know, and I will tell you that you have to be there twice a week, because the fields can only be so high before kids can't play on it. They can't be too tall, so it has to be cut twice a week, and that takes a big dent out of local contractors' schedules. People that bid on this, usually this is kind of what they do for a living.
All right, can you have a motion, please?
I'll move it.
Second.
Roll call?
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Abstain.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
The next 2 resolutions are for our risk manager and our benefits coordinator for our insurance fund for both the property casualty and as well as healthcare. I will read the heading. It's the same that you do every year. 2019-56 resolution authorizing the award of a non-fair and open contract for consultant benefits coordinator. And this is again for our insurance program. It's a PIA Security Programs Inc. $20,000 a year. We've had very good success with this agent. Mr. Klimik, I don't have to read this whole thing in total, do I?
No, it's on the record.
Is this the same guy?
It's the same guy that provided that significant saving to us. He's the guy that does the training. He's interactive. He has handled some of our claim stuff in-house now that, our person who was handling it isn't here any longer. I do a lot of it, but his office is handling some of the stuff directly when there's some employee information that they need to. So it's really a benefit for us to continue with this program.
When we switched to them originally, he had saved us $240,000
A year.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Yes.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Similarly, 2019-57, a resolution authorizing an award of a non-fair and open contract for risk management consultant. And this is for Professional Insurance Associates, Inc.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
Roll call?
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Yes.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
The next two contracts are for our environmental attorney, Resolution 2019-58, whereas do you want me to read this whole thing, Mr. Klimik, or do you want to summarize it?
Well, let me, maybe I should summarize it. This is, as the manager said, this is for our environmental attorney, Ms. Monahan, who's been, I think she's been in that position about 10 years now, 9 or 10 years, all right? There's two contracts here. One is for environmental services that are compensable through the insurance carriers, and the other is for those environmental services that may not be compensable through the insurance carriers, okay? So 2019-58 is a resolution covering those items not compensable through the carriers.
Watch that team. 19.
Can I get a motion?
With this, you said that Wanda's been our consultant for the last 10 years?
Approximately, I think 8 or 10 years.
It's maybe a little less than that, but yes.
Maybe less, yeah.
Yeah, I know, with our auditor, he said it sometimes helps to have a new eye to look at things, and maybe it's time for a new eye. Have we looked at any other environmental?
Well, there's a difference between the auditor's position and the environmental counsel. The auditor's position, you have a year cycle, year cycle, year cycle. This is a long, complicated, continuous process that's been going on, as you know.
Yeah.
And I think the people who deal with it directly are satisfied. The insurance carriers are. Scott is. In my connections and relationships, I am. To consider somebody else to start over would be massive. And secondly, you have to get it through the insurance companies. They just do not, because there would have to be a total refunding, a total re-education of the whole process. And in my opinion, this attorney is doing an excellent job following the dictates as directed by the council, okay? That's her job. She doesn't set the policy. She's the legal representative who carries out the policies in accordance with council resolutions. So I do not think it's because of the high competence of this person. She started off as a Deputy Attorney General in the Department of Environmental Protection. This is her specialty, and in my opinion, she's done an excellent job carrying out what you folks have dictated over the years.
We would absolutely have to go through the insurance carrier. I lived through this once before. We had we have two different environmental councils. over the years. And when we replaced those environmental councils way back, we had to have a committee of the insurance carriers. The insurance carriers interviewed, they submitted their names, we submitted our names, and ultimately, in each one of those times that we did this, we went through this exercise. It was an arduous task, but we prevailed and got our own attorneys. They always want to put their own attorneys in there, and I don't think that would be in the best interest of the borough. I think that having lived through that process at least 2 other times, it would be lengthy, and it would take you the better part of the year to get that done. Because dealing with Selective Insurance and Zurich Insurance and other insurance companies that have been bought out by 3 different insurance companies is not a simple process. So, and I also think that Ms. Monahan has done exactly what Mr. Clemick said. She's followed the wishes of the council. She represents us, not the carriers, but she is paid through one of these contracts through them as long as we sign off on the invoices.
Okay. Can I get a motion?
I'll move that.
Second. Roll call?
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Yes.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
And Resolution 2019-59 is actually is for stuff that she would bill us. She bills at a rate of $240 an hour as per this contract that's attached. It's the same as it was in the previous years.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Yes.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
And Resolution 2019-60 is resolution authorizing the execution of a shared service agreement with the Borough of Wanacue for the construction of official services. We talked about this, you gave me authorization to submit a proposal to them, and I did submit the proposal. This one, they sent us the new one today. But this is for a contract for $50,000 for our building code official to work 1 day a week in the Borough of Wanacue. We've been doing it for several months when their construction official left. I think this will help to replace some of the income that we lost with the health services shared service contract in Wanacue. I think it's a positive for Wanacue, and I think it's a positive for us, though it's not a huge windfall. We're going to have some expenses. We're going to be paying Mr. Hafner, as outlined in our discussions at the last meeting. But at the end of the day, there will be a windfall of a couple dollars for us, and we'll be helping out Wanacue in a shared service.
Motion?
I'll second.
Roll call?
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Yes.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
And if they see that they need more time, we can revisit this if they want in like 2 days a week.
Yeah, we only signed a 1-year contract because we wanted to know how it was gonna work for us and how it was gonna work for them. My prediction is they may look to somebody to do some of these things, but they don't have any processes in place. We're gonna, so if in fact we find that it's using more time, we obviously will revisit. And I have talked to them about, we've been doing this for nothing for the last 2 months. We're gonna bill them for that time. Excuse me. 2019-61, whereas the Borough of Ringwood authorized the tolling agreement with the US EPA relative to the Upper Ringwood site, and whereas the said agreement is due to expire on February 28th, 2019. No surprise there, I talk about this every month, let us extend it much longer, but they give us dates, thank you. And we can't really change their dates. Now therefore be it resolved, Municipal Council of the Borough of Ringwood hereby authorized permission to extend the tolling agreement until March 29th, 2019, subject to no objections from the Carrier Council, whereas be further resolved, municipal manager is hereby authorized to execute the appropriate tolling agreement on behalf of the borough. I'm gonna predict.
Please put the next resolution on next
Yes.
month's agenda, because we're not gonna have a meeting, right? We're gonna have a meeting on March 19th. We're not gonna have a meeting. These people aren't gonna be protected. Tell them that we're gonna keep our neck inside the guillotine for as long as this takes and cut the crap. Maybe, I
Just
just.
never gonna get it done in time, and I wish they would just let me extend it longer, but,
Like, can we just do it?
no, the last time that I changed their dates,
Yeah.
I got,
They're sensitive. to
I
that.
got a nasty gram. I don't, let's just use their date, and I'll put it on the next agenda to extend it again.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Roll call.
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Yes.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Consent.
Next on the agenda is the consent agenda resolution. Whereas the mayor and council of Borough of Ringwood has reviewed the consent agenda consisting of various proposed resolutions. Now therefore be it resolved, the municipal council, that the following resolutions on the consent agenda are hereby approved. 2019-62 is the approval of the actual consent agenda. 2019-63 is approval of avoided checks. 2019-64 authorized the redemption of tax sale certificate, which are various and are listed. 2019-65 authorized municipal lien redemptions, Block 600, Lot 14, C1, and Block 603, Lot 8. 2019-66 authorized 2018 property tax reduction disabled seniors and veterans, and various. 2019-67 approval of the payroll and payroll transfers for January of 2019. 2019-68 is certified that the Ringwood Ambulance Corps is the emergency service provider for the borough. And 2019-69 member participation of the New Jersey Cooperative Purchase Alliance.
Can I get a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Yes.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Okay. The managers.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. I have a bunch of correspondence, and I have some stuff on the manager's report this evening. The first is a letter to Mr. Kaufman from Azarian, which is the Stop and Shop side of the parking lot, of the shopping centers on Skyline Drive. Mr. Kaufman, it was nice speaking with you, and as a follow-up to our call, I've had correspondence with your organization dating back to February 18th, 2016, as well as direct correspondence with Ms. Lisa Ham, Vice President of the Real Estate for Stop and Shop. Correspondence was enclosed. For some time, the borough has expressed an interest in revitalizing the commercial district and shopping centers, with the initial letter sent to the commercial property owners on January 7th, 2015. We've had several meetings or correspondence both with the shopping center representatives. The borough has retained several professionals to aid them in their vision for revitalizing and developing plans which will offer innovative possibilities for development of a shopping center and offer landlords and tenants alternate means for developing their properties while providing alternative housing opportunities. We have explored several different options for Skyline Drive corridor, which will include mixed-use development, changing the footprint of the shopping centers, and revising ordinances accordingly in an effort to develop a successful model that would benefit the shopping centers as well as the residents of Ringwood. Ringwood continues to be very interested in the revitalization of your shopping center and feels that an expanded anchor supermarket is one of the keys to any successful commercial development. While we understand it would require an expansion, the borough is open to explore any concepts that you may have to that end. As you can see from the previous correspondence, although I presented our concept to Stop and Shop in the past, I would ask you to revisit with Stop and Shop as the borough is desirous of having an updated supermarket as an anchor store. We believe that now may be the appropriate time to again present the details of the borough's development concept directly to Stop and Shop management, which we hope will generate a positive response to revitalize the shopping center. I would be happy to meet with you and the representative of Stop and Shop regarding the development of the shopping center, and I look forward to hearing from you. I sent that over to Mr. Kaufman February 1st. I know he's been looking for it, but there's correspondence going back for a bunch of years kind of stating the same thing. So I sent him a packet, I sent him all the information. Evidently, he's relatively new to this particular property, so that letter was sent to the shopping center.
Yeah, he had written to us in December requesting a letter to present to the corporate Stop and Shop, because they want them to revitalize the Stop and Shop, which I think most of the community does want. As far as the plan that the municipality's been pursuing, we don't even know if that's ever gonna come to fruition, and
I was summarizing really the letters that have been written over the bunch of years, including the letter directly to Stop and Shop. And kind of how I ended it is the borough's open to explore any concepts you may have. So get back to us. Here's the list of correspondence over the years. Here's the letter that we're looking at having the shopping center revitalized. We talked about concept plans, and that is, get back to us relative to any ideas that you may have or input to develop your shopping center. I will tell you that in the past, Stop and Shop has declined to change anything. So anyway, that's one letter that I sent out on behalf of the council.
If I could be a pain, could we get copies of the history, the enclosure?
Sure.
That'd be great.
Yeah, sure. Don't want to burden your,
It would have been a very thick.
well, I don't know if it's that thick, but, we received a lot of complaints about Greenwood Lake Turnpike, and the county did come and fix it in the fall. Unfortunately, it's deteriorated, and you can, I don't even know that I need to say anymore. So I sent a letter to the borough engineer and said, I'm writing you today about the condition of Greenwood Lake Turnpike. As a follow-up to our previous discussions and correspondence, the friction surface that was applied to the road has deteriorated further in many locations. I'm enclosing some photos for your review. As a temporary stopgap to the problem last fall, some significant patching had been done by the county. However, some of those locations have come up, and many other locations, many other areas have major cracking and a new surface, and I suspect will continue to fail. This being a safety concern, we ask you to provide us some input as to the county's approach to repairing these roads. In addition, with spring season upcoming, we have concerns from motorcyclists and bicyclists that use this road. I'd be happy to meet with you to discuss this. I thank you for your consideration. I look forward to your response. I am very concerned that when bikes and motorcycles are out, that it's very hazardous. Not only is the center of the road, people are swerving to miss the potholes, but all of that grit that was in the roads and all the breakdowns on the side of the road, so that's not good for motorcycles. It's certainly not good for bicycles. So that's something that really absolutely needs to be repaired quickly. So I sent that letter to Passaic County.
Did they respond at all yet?
Not yet, but I just, what was the date of that letter?
February
February 6th. So I'm sure that they will. They've been pretty responsive.
Yeah, and I knew that they had patched it. It's also interesting, and this is, I guess, just anecdotal, but it seems like there are worse spots on our portions of the road, and I don't know if it's because it's windy. Like when you come out on Skylands, there's just a whole lot of terrible.
I can tell you
potholes, but
why
like-
that is. Ours was the last section to be done. It was cold. It was not the best time to be putting this friction surface down, and we questioned it at the time, but the county was going based upon the DOT. I mean, the DOT is the one who recommended these type of things. I'm concerned that it all needs to be milled up. You can't pave over it. You got to mill it and then pave it. You can't just go over top of that because it won't adhere. So that's probably why we were in the last section.
Yeah, because I was noticing, like heading into West Milford, it's not as bad, and it's the same surface, and so
That's my prediction. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but John, no.
But the timing makes more sense than my theory of, oh, well, our roads are curvy. Like that's probably not.
No, Kirby's a
Is
good
it?
thing.
Okay.
Yes. That pavement was over 2 years old when they applied this coating, and that stuff really wants newer pavement to adhere to. Yeah.
Moving along.
Two more correspondence, and then I'll go on to my report. Last spring, I talked to all of you about Stonetown Road. I talked to you about truck traffic, and I talked to you about weight limits, and Jeff and Chief started that process, and we started to work on how we're going to limit some of the heavier trucks. You go down Ricker Hill, and I told you this story last year. As you come down that hill and you watch a quarry truck coming down to the bottom of the hill where there's a school bus stop, something doesn't make sense to me. So we started that process, and with the bridge now complete, there's no reason that, we couldn't apply it to the state. Before the bridge was complete, it would not have worked. Now that the bridge is complete, we can. Part of the requirement is that I get approvals for every town that we have to divert the trucks through. Now, while Wanacue only owns like 1,000 feet of Westbrook Road from Townsend Road to the bridge, maybe it's more than 1,000 feet, but not much more than that. We will be diverting them through their property, even though it goes that way, and they own a little bit of, from the end of the bridge to the wall, the infamous wall. That's Wanacue, that's not Ringwood there. So we had to get a resolution from Wanacue supporting this plan. We also have to get a resolution from Passaic County because it will involve their road. So I wrote to both Passaic County and the Borough of Wanacue asking for, as you're aware, the new Westbrook Road is substantially complete and the bridge is open to traffic. The traffic on the bridge moves much more efficiently and safely, and an improved lane of the shoulder widths provided. With the bridge being open to traffic, the Borough of Ringwood is seeking approval from the New Jersey DOT for a 10-ton commercial vehicle weight limit restriction on the entire length of Stonetown Road in Ringwood. The entire length of Stonetown Road is under the Ringwood's jurisdiction. However, with the proposed weight restriction, trucks weighing more than 10 tons would be required to travel on a small portion of Westbrook Road under Wanacue's jurisdiction and on Greenwood Lake Turnpike, which is under Passaic County's jurisdiction. Therefore, DOT requires Ringwood to obtain a resolution adopted by the governing body of Wanacue and Passaic County, concurring with Ringwood's recommendation of the 10-ton commercial weight limit restriction for Stonetown Road, and it is in the interest of public safety and expedition of traffic. Attached is a map prepared by the borough engineer that shows the entire length of Stonetown Road as well as the alternate truck traffic Westbrook Road for Greenwood Lake Turnpike. As noted on the map, Stonetown Road is primarily residential, 10.5-foot traveled lanes, 14 school bus stops, 130 driveways, 21 street intersections, and there are also 8 locations of Stonetown Road with limited sight distance and a maximum grade on Ricker Hill of 11.75. Westbrook Road is wooded and with 10-foot lanes and 11-foot travel lanes, no school bus stops, no driveways, no intersections. Greenwood Lake Turnpike is also preliminarily wooded with a 12-foot wide travel lanes, 2 bus stops, 20 driveways, and 5 street intersections. Due to the above listed, as well as numerous reported almost accidents, Greenwood respectively requests that resolution of Wanacue and Passaic County concurring the 10-ton weight limit for the entire length of Stonetown Road, and I've enclosed the resolution that Mr. Klimak was kind enough to write for their consideration. So hopefully, once we get that, it doesn't mean that we're going to get the 10-ton limit, but we certainly will do everything we can. We're going to have to do a traffic count, a 24-hour or a 48-hour traffic count, where we have to do it around the clock. We have to count how many trucks go and how many cars go. We will get that done if, in fact, we get to that point.
We also received a letter from a citizen, Leggett, I think his name was, regarding
We did receive-
Stonetown Road and
Yes.
the miles per hour, I mean, the
Yes.
speed limit.
Yep.
Have we looked into that on his behalf?
We did look, well, we didn't look at it on his behalf. We looked at it previous to that last year
Right.
when we talked about this. We could possibly lower it 5 miles an hour. Jeff and the chief feel that this would have a far greater impact than doing that, but we could do that as well.
Yeah, if we did a combination, it
This
seems
is
it
a,
would
this is
be.
a totally separate, but Jeff's concerned that if we start to change the speed limit and we change the weight limit, you're gonna get one or the other, and he felt that this was probably a better move. You can always do that down the road.
Do we have to go to the county to get, is that a county road,
No.
Stonetown Road? So
No,
do we
it's our
have to
road.
go to them to get a reduction in the speed limit, or can we do that as a town?
State.
We
The
probably have
DOT
to go
has
to
criteria.
DOT. I mean, we do have some specs that we could possibly make some changes, but we would have to get approval from DOT.
Okay,
You know,
so.
let's make it, we just cannot change speed limits. There are DOT standards that we
Right.
have to certify. So, I mean, it's a long study, but I think what the manager is saying is apparently, you know, the Stonetown Road seems to be a separate issue, a major issue. And there's gonna be a lot of work to hit that first, and then follow up on the second issue, reducing the speed by 5 miles an hour.
Correct.
Yeah.
And
Because it's
I
gonna
would-
take a lot of borough
Just-
resources just to do the Stonetown Road.
Well, and
yes.
if you're applying for a weight restriction and you're applying for a speed reduction at the same time, the likeliness of you getting both are slim to none.
When we had Elizabeth Ward up here with somebody, I think, from the DOT, and we were talking to them, I thought they said that those things have changed, and it wasn't as onerous as
It was
was
actually Chuck
previously.
Silverstein from Passaic County.
Okay, thank you.
Jeff totally disagrees with him,
Jeff totally disagrees with,
Chuck. And when
Chuck.
we followed up with Chuck, Chuck said, well, we just kind of do it, and the DOT doesn't seem to, but Jeff's not really one of those guys. He would rather have confirmation that you're allowed to do this before you go changing speed limits. Because there's a lot of implications when you change, just like, it's not so simple to change stop signs. You need resolutions, you need, so that you can enforce. If you want to enforce the speed, you better make sure that when it goes to court, when you give somebody a speeding ticket, that it's enforceable.
And just from a sorry.
It took us a while to get the lakes down to 25 miles an
I
hour.
remember, and we had discussed it at this meeting, and Chuck had said that if it's your road, you make a decision, you didn't have to go through the DOT. So Jeff disagrees, but maybe we can get clarification on that.
Well, Jeff has to sign it.
Jeff has to sign it, okay, so.
And he thinks we can do it, but he said, let's do the weight restriction first.
Sure, but
Yeah.
then continue with this.
Because
Okay.
I just could see there being, if you're changing factors in like an ecosystem, change them one at a time as opposed to complicating the recipe. And I think from the feedback that I've gotten from residents, that the quarry trucks, whether it's their presence or just their speed, is the biggest concern. So if we're able to address the usage of Stonetown Road through this approach first, then I think we could revisit the speed
Yeah.
limit. I think that would be a good order of operations. Did they provide any preliminary feedback, either Wanacue or the county?
I just sent this letter.
Okay.
Seven.
Last week I wrote a lot of letters.
And I clearly am thinking we get very quick responses, but the portion of Wanacue property that we're talking about, we also did road maintenance for them too. No?
We often will, when residents call about potholes that are in Wanacue section, we call them, but Wanacue's not so quick to respond. So we generally will go do the maintenance, but we don't per se do the maintenance. We only do it very voluntarily because it's our residents that are using it. It's some of Wanacue's residents as well, but, so we don't really do the maintenance. We only do it on a case-by-case basis.
Plowing? We plow it, right?
We plow it and they do some plowing. We probably do the majority, but.
Essentially, I'm just trying to say, like, they should have no complaint.
You're right.
It really wouldn't impact any of their residents.
Right.
Nobody in Wanacue is gonna notice this happen. So they shouldn't have a problem.
And the one thing, and I know this would come out in the study, but the trucks still use Greenwood Lake Turnpike and they use the bridge anyway. So it's not as though this would be introducing them to Greenwood Lake Turnpike. It would just be keeping them off of Stonetown
Keeping them
Road,
off
because they've been
Yes.
barreling down 511 anyway. I've seen it.
Probably anybody going north is gonna go Westbrook Road, Stonetown Road. Anybody going south obviously is gonna go the other way anyway, so, but there is quite a bit of truck traffic there.
Okay.
You got more?
For your benefit this evening, I made a copy of the letter. I received a letter today from the insurance carrier kind of putting us on notice relative to changes. Mr. Klimek, is this a public portion? Is this an open session letter or is this executive session?
Well, why don't we discuss in the executive session, and then the council can decide how they want to handle it, okay?
Can you list this on your executive session? All right, a few more updates, and the tax map revisions, we had a meeting with Schwanley Holds Engineering to review our draft tax map, make the revisions for 17 and 18, deed modifications, and submittal to New Jersey for its approval, and we're waiting for their proposal to do that. Our surveyor who did this for many, many years has retired.
No kidding.
Or at least retired from this. He spends 6 months of his year
God bless them.
in South America someplace. We already talked about the lawn maintenance contract, so we don't have to talk about that. We received their settlement with Mid-Atlantic Salt for $15,000, and I've signed the agreement. Thank you, Mr. Klimek. And I've also written the check, so hopefully that's done and gone. We already talked about the shared service agreement. Economic development. I attended the EDC, and for now, I'm gonna continue to go as a secretary until we get through some of the beginning meetings. Most of the information that they requested at that meeting had to come from me anyway. I've distributed the information to them that they requested. Helen's doing the actual minutes. The beauty of this machine is it records it all, and I don't have to actually take the minutes, I can just get the information for them. So I'm going to continue. I spoke to Mitch Kahn, our chairman, and he thinks that that would be a good idea at this point. And at some point down the road, we may very well hire somebody to assist them. But at this point, I'm going to just go to the next couple of meetings. Ringwood Library. Regrettably, Lee Spetter, our librarian, has resigned effective March 8th. So she's going to be retiring, and I just want to let everybody know because she's been a face there for, I think, 17 years, maybe 18 years. So they are going to be going through a search. Also, at Ringwood Library, we're working with the trustees of the library to do an assessment of the HVA system. As you know, that system has been marginal at best for a bunch of years. It wasn't really designed very well. I mean, you shouldn't have to turn the heat on in the basement in order to dehumidify while you have the air conditioning on upstairs. So we're working on getting an assessment. They're going to actually pay for that initial assessment and evaluation from their funds, and then we're going to apply for a grant to hopefully get that HVAC replaced. It's a significant investment. It's probably upwards of $150,000 investment. So getting a fund, a grant for that would be good. We've explored two different. I'm sorry.
I'm just curious, would that be part of the energy audit since it's a municipal
One of the grants
building?
is the energy audit. We
Right.
talked about that. The other grant, one is a 75% match, one is a 50% match, but we have to determine which one is better.
Okay.
The library, the something to libraries grant also, I forget what the name of the grant actually is,
Okay.
would also be something that would work for that. I talked about this a little bit briefly. I met with Solar Cap for approximately, over the last 4 months. I've been meeting with Solar Cap for the possibility of the solar program, and they have some really innovative and interesting ideas. And this is for the recycling center, where the OCDA or the old recycling center as a possibility. I've also talked to them about possibly our own landfill, but regardless of the location, we've been talking about a couple of different programs. I know I shared this with you, and we talked about it at the EDC as well. The BPU is a new program for solar. The Greater Bergen Community Action Group that I've been speaking with talked about a pilot program promulgating from the BPU where we could do a long-term lease where we can take the capital investment and for renewable energy, which would be used to offset electrical costs for those eligible families throughout the community. So you would not want to take this on a piece of property that would be something that you could generate a lot of income from, because you're going to take whatever income comes out of here and you're going to reduce the costs to some of the folks that can't afford electricity throughout the community or need help with electricity. There's about 240, it appears there's about 240 households that would be eligible to receive this reduction in electric costs based upon the program. The only way that solar works in some of these locations is through one of these initiatives, as a cost-benefit ratio doesn't work without subsidies. You have to have subsidies to make it work. We don't use enough power in an appropriate area for a solar program to make sense for us based upon the capital investment. But this program would work, and because it's a new program by the BPU, and they're just announcing some of the regulations in the next month. So this electric would not go to us per se, it would go to the grid. It wouldn't go to the actual homes that need it because they're scattered throughout town. They're not necessarily here. But the BTU program, we would probably realize minimum returns that we wouldn't otherwise receive anything. And the 240 families in Nemes would receive subsidies on all or part of their electric bill. And it's all parts of towns that could benefit, whether it's a senior and, there's I don't know the families, it's based upon.
Income, right?
I think there's a couple different categories. I think income is the predominantly the reason. While I've been working with them for a bunch of months, there are many, many steps that have to be taken, including meeting with residents, meeting with the DEP, and meeting with the insurance carriers. Yeah, unfortunately, they have a say. Meeting with the EPA, and so before we get too far ahead of ourselves, I would ask you to allow me to go through this process, and I will keep it as a monthly agenda item to report back. But it may be possible to turn something that has been somewhat a negative to our community into something that could help some of the folks in and around that area. So I think that I'm going to continue to look into it, and at some point I'll have something to hand to all of you folks to consider. But at this point, it's a long way away because there's a lot of steps in between.
Is it possible to, since it is a pilot program and it's brand new, is it possible to lobby them to do a little bit more than just help low income, like maybe help with the schools?
It's a pretty
and-
specific program, so.
Okay, so it is limited?
It is very limited, yeah.
Okay.
So, unfortunately, and it's something that the BPA hasn't finalized all of their, although they're pretty close on all of their requirements, so. And I think it would be a good thing if we could take something like this and turn it into
Yeah.
some kind of positive.
Yeah, taking.
Whether it's all positive or not, this aspect of it could very well be.
It could be a leader in the green field, which would be nice as opposed to the brown fields, right?
Right. It'd be nice to talk about something positive instead of negative.
Yeah, put us on the map.
In terms of the income that it would generate, so I know that the program itself earmarks the funds for low-income residents, which anything we can do to help make it more affordable is great. Is there an opportunity for, I'll call it add-on installations? So if there was the pilot portion where you have to be near the transfer station and the electricity generated from those panels is used to subsidize electric bills, would there be an opportunity to assess additional locations that would not be, going into that, I'll call it the underwriting program, but make for a larger solar buy? Because I know there's scales of efficiencies in terms of like enough coverage or enough buildings. So if we're doing the pilot, would it be an opportunity to maybe throw it on the garage or open it up to the schools who, from their previous explorations, they never had enough surface area either?
I asked that very question. Ironically, they were originally looking for 20 acres. Well, we don't have 20 acres of flat, cleared area in Ringwood anywhere. They're going to make an exception, it sounds like, through some of the discussions where they will put in a smaller grid. But you couldn't really expand onto that particular one. Each one would be independent because your transfer switch, your electrical components, your buy-in into that network are all based upon that particular farm. So each one would be independent, and let's say we were able to do more than one. The costs to just put it into the grid would be prohibitive. But if we were using it ourselves, and by that you have to use it at that site. You can't say I'm using it down at our pump station in the south part of town. You have to use it within X amount of area. So it's difficult, but I'm working my way through it, and so far I think it's a little bit of a stretch, but I think it's worth exploring, and so that's kind of where that's at. So that's just an update that I'm going to keep on our
Business rich.
on our manager's report. I'm going to talk all night evidently tonight, it looks like. We already did the correspondence, so I don't have to do any of that. I'm going to talk a little bit philosophical for a few minutes, and for the past several years, I've been talking about the budget and the budget crisis in Ringwood and what we would be facing. And I talk about it every budget time, and I talk about it periodically, and when I give you guys, the council, updates. And unfortunately, my predictions have come true. The crisis is upon us. Year after year, we cut funding from the budget to try to keep the taxes down, but unfortunately, at this point, these cuts are going to likely have an impact on services we provide to the residents. You can only cut so long before you start to cut into areas where you're going to affect people in town. And that happens everywhere. That's not something that's abnormal, and I think that cutting is a good function. But what I want to talk about tonight is, from 2014 to 2016, our total net taxable amount, which is the value that every property in Ringwood is, whether it's homes, whether it's commercial, it's the total net taxable amount. It was stable or slightly increasing over those 3 years. In 2017, our net taxable dollars dropped 2%, or dropped by $2,959,000. In 2018, our net taxable dollars dropped 3%, or $4,288,400. Everybody's looking at me like, their eyes have already glazed over. Like, why? How does this affect me, and why are you telling me this? Well, this is how it affects you, whether the properties are coming off the tax rolls or the property values are being reduced by tax appeals. And I can give you 2 examples that why these things have just happened last year, why the significant drop last year. As an example, our shopping centers and our largest tax appeal, North Jersey Reservoir, came off of our tax rolls. And then what happens with this is the tax bill gets split amongst all the other taxpayers. And the taxes for those particular properties that did not have an appeal go up. So what we're doing is we're taking, the expenses are still the same, even though you've cut some. So what we're doing is we're taking that dollar amount where they got a tax appeal and we're spreading it over all the rest of the folks in town. Which isn't appealing. Let's face it, we're already overburdened with taxes. In order to address this trend, I'd ask the council to work on policies that will increase our tax base and revenues and plan our future so that the financial burden is absorbed by the increased revenues instead of increases to taxes to our overburdened residents already. Tonight we talked about a lot of grants and a lot of different things. They're small in nature, and every one of those little grants help. I'm asking us to look at kind of the bigger picture. The responsibility of mayor and council are to set policies and adopt ordinances which could help revenue stream. That's one of the things that's afforded to all of you folks by way of ordinances. But keep in mind that these policies and ordinances, if changed, generally take a minimum of 3 years to realize any financial benefit. So whatever you do today is going to take quite a few years to play out. So I guess what I'm telling you all is not that, I'm not telling everybody that this is a massive crisis. I'm not telling you that everybody should sell their homes. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is now is the time to act. Our residents need the council to be proactive so that we can avoid, we know what's coming. We predicted it over the years. So I'm asking our residents to be proactive and not only look at expenses, but also look at some modest growth. No community can sustain its services with declining revenues. Declining revenues are absolutely going to affect services. It's just a fact of life. Commercial and retail businesses need some type of growth also in order to stay successful. So that's just a fact of life, and again, it's something that we have to address. And I'm not speaking today just about the municipal budget, because the municipal budget is one small portion of the taxes. I'm also talking about the Ringwood school budget. They're suffering as well from exactly the same thing, but they realize more of the money from the tax dollars. We only keep 22%. The rest goes to the schools in the county. So the schools are really affected by this. Half of your money in taxes go to the schools. So they're suffering as well from the same decline of the income that we are, and I think that we should really look to address this.
Excuse me, but one important factor is for every person who files a tax appeal, Ringwood gets the burden of the appeal. The Board of Education, the County Passaic do not get the burden. So we get the 2 Board of Educations and the County Passaic share of the tax bill. We have to, hits our pocketbook.
Yes, that first year, we only collect 22. We only keep 22%. We give the other 78% to the other entities. But in that first year, when they win a tax appeal, we're obligated to pay all the money back, the whole 100%, not just the 22% we get. So you're correct. And as I'm sitting here, I was thinking about what I was going to say tonight. I said, I have a policy for all my department heads that if you're going to bring me a problem, you also need to bring me a solution. And so here's some of my ideas that may help this, because this is a pretty significant issue that we're facing, and I feel that I should have the same responsibility. I shouldn't bring you a problem without giving you some of what I think might work, and what you guys do with it is kind of up to you. But I think the theme for tonight really needs to be compromise. I think we need to put a plan together that's good for the community, and yes, the community's gonna have to change somewhat. Let's be honest, you can't expect it to not experience any change. You're gonna need some change. I've been a resident for more than 50 years. And if my family and others like them adopted a policy that, hey, listen, this is a great place, let's keep it a secret, we're gonna close the door behind us, many of you that are here today would not be here, because it is a great place, and you do wanna kinda keep it the way it is. But unfortunately, that creates some of the burden that we have before us. We have to implement some change while protecting the integrity of our community. Doing nothing when we know that a financial problem is coming is really not a viable option. We can't do nothing. We have to do something. Along that vein, I've spent quite a bit of time thinking about ways we can generate some revenues and create some opportunities for the community. But I really think that we can put together collectively a plan where we can achieve the visions of the community. All of you represent the visions from one's perspective or another. We have a lot of different ideas at this council. We have a lot of different people that have very strong opinions about some things. But with compromise and presenting those visions, we probably can put a plan together that works for everybody. We actually have the community to put we actually have the opportunity to put the community first. We can compromise and create a plan that makes sense for the community now and in the future. Here are a couple of my random thoughts. First, the commercial district is in need of significant enhancement. Again, no successful shopping center has been built recently without some aspect of a housing element. No matter how big or small, I think you guys can make those determinations, but you have to do something. Our centers are partially failing because of the population is reducing. People are shopping online, and the ratio of commercial to residential is disproportionate to the times which we live in. People are not shopping in the stores the way they used to. So we have to address that. That's the problem with our shopping centers. Without increasing the value of our shopping centers, with either renovations or physical brick and mortar construction, you're not going to increase the tax base. Filling the vacancies, which would be very positive and certainly appeal to the residents. I mean, we certainly want to have the shopping center full, but it will not help the budget since the taxes are charged represent only a 10% vacancy, even though some of the shopping centers have a 50% vacancy. So even if you fill those, it's not going to solve the tax problem because the ratio is, the way that the ratios work for the tax assessment, they assume a 10% vacancy. Any more than 10%, they just think it's bad management, so you don't get a tax credit for that. So we have to be honest and open about this what's driving the problem with the shopping center is it's an old, worn out building that doesn't have as much value as an updated shopping center. We tax based upon value. A new and updated shopping center would be far more effective in generating revenue, as the outdated shopping center would be so much more value than the current one. I'm confident that the council can come up with a compromise of what they want in the shopping centers to look like, but we have to start talking about it. We talk about a lot of things here. We need to talk about what we want to be when we grow up as a community. I'm quite sure that the businesses will welcome the additional people in towns to shop on the weekends as well as shop during the week, as well as the weekend warriors that come here to explore all that we have to offer. Over the past year, some of you have spoken about tourism, and this is certainly a part of the equation, but it alone will not solve our financial problems. Tourism, bike trails, and events are more quality of life issues, and they make Ringwood a destination, and they definitely should be explored, but they're not going to solve the tax problem. It's definitely part of the equation. So, in light of that, while we're developing our commercial district, we should also create interconnections between our areas for our youth, bicyclists, and walkers. It sounds like a great idea. How are you going to do that? Well, I think we can achieve this several different ways. Ringwood has got beautiful surroundings. We have a lot of land and we have a lot to offer. We own vast amounts of land throughout the borough. In the short term, I think we should work on a forest management plan for much of our vacant properties, which would generate revenue from harvesting the trees. It's good for the forest and approved by the DEP. Forest management plans are encouraged because it creates habitats for the wildlife. It's really healthy for the forest. We could do this in a select fashion where the logging trails are strategically placed. We can create trails that have vistas and help connect our lands with hiking trails and open space to our shopping centers. So you can kind of pick and choose where you want to go. If you know that there's some beautiful rock outcroppings that have incredible views, why wouldn't we take advantage of that and get a trail to those so that where we have these hikers, we can have this as a destination for them to go and they can say, look at this beautiful view overlooking the reservoir. Look at, and subsequent to that, we can do this and connect all these trails to the shopping centers from Erskine to Cupsaw. There's so many things that you can do with that. It's going to take time, but it's something that you could do, and you certainly could harvest the wood. We talked about somebody here harvesting the wood and not selling it earlier tonight, and it just makes sense. I'd also like to apply for an open space grant to the Passaic County Open Space Committee for a bike pedestrian path bridge at Skyline Drive and Erskine Road. I've talked about it for the last couple of years. That's what's limiting factor in starting our bike paths for our community. We can't get across that brook safely because the road's narrow. Without that, we can't even begin to start our bike paths. So I think we should start there. Look, make no mistake, it's gonna take more than this to create a sustainable economic future. But we have to take those first steps, and you folks, it's you folks that talk about some of these policies and ordinances and you have to have that difficult discussion. I think what I'm presenting here is something that everybody can work towards and can achieve something for everybody and something that might make sense. We have to look at the big picture, and we have to do some long-term planning. I'm not sounding the warning alarm, and by no means do I have all the answers. I don't have all the answers, but again, if I'm gonna tell you that here's the problem, and I've been saying it for a long time, well, here's an avenue that we can start to fix the problem. I believe we can actually have the opportunity to put the community first, compromise, and create a plan that will make a difference for the community. But that all starts with you folks. I can manage, I can cut the budget, I can do whatever it is. This kind of stuff is community-driven and council-driven. So you can tell that I've been spending a lot of time on the budget because I feel pretty strongly about this stuff. And I don't think it's something that we should lightly glance over. With that, Mayor, I have talked way too much tonight.
Mr. Kleenbeck?
I have a few executive session items. I can recite a resolution now. Scott, I have a question. Do you want to do all of the contracts that are listed here?
No, Chief, Captain, and Lieutenant. I also would like to update the council on the PVA contract negotiations.
Okay.
And you've added the letter from the insurance carriers?
Yes, I got that. Okay. Okay, resolved that the municipal council enter into executive session to discuss the following matters. Number one would be Aptiva Environmental LLC. If you recall, a few months ago, we did a standstill agreement with that group. They are protesting the constitutionality of our peddlers ordinance. They have been in touch with me. I've been in touch with them. This is potential litigation. I'd like to discuss it in executive session. The second would be Mid-Atlantic, Mid-American Salt LLC versus Morris County Co-op, Borough Greenwood, and others, which is litigation. The third would be the PBA contract, which is collective bargaining. Okay. Fourth item would be a letter dated February 19, 2019, from Kennedy CPM, but on behalf of all the carriers. It is a potential for litigation. We'll discuss that in executive session. Okay. Then we'll do the contracts, prospective contracts for the chief of police, the captain, and lieutenants, all of the police. Let's see if there's anything else I have here.
The personnel matter.
Yes, that's right. I'm sorry, yes. And the personnel matter, manager's presentation of confidential reports regarding employee grievance against certain persons, and let me just see if I have anything else. That's all I have. Be further resolved, the minutes of the meeting may be maintained and be available for public inspection upon the conclusion of the matters, provided that the Open Public Records Act allows disclosure of certain of the minutes. They may be litigation or privacy minutes that are not subject to disclosure. The public is advised that when the municipal council returns from the executive session, that it may take formal action on any matter discussed therein, or it may take formal action on any other matter. If you want to do the resolution now, then you can proceed to the public portion. Okay.
Do we have a motion?
I'll make the motion.
Second. Roll call.
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Yes.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Ferretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes. Is that 2019-70?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to the second general public portion. And when wishing to speak to any issue, please step up to the microphone and speak.
Good evening, I'm Peter Sando from 24 High Point Lane. And I just wanted to ask what the term for Ms. Monahan's contract is,
1 year.
what the length of it is.
1 year.
Is it 1 year? Okay, thank you.
Hi, Venkatall, 24 High Point Lane. Yeah, after hearing about the budget crisis and and compromising that you guys could do, which is a really good idea, I'm so thankful to Kathy and Rob and Ryan for putting the EDC back in, putting it, revitalizing it. It's going to be really important to get a lot of ideas, and I think a lot of people have a lot of ideas, especially when it comes to the shopping centers. I was listening to the letter that you wrote, Mr. Heck, and a couple of questions I have is, first of all, you said that the borough has hired some people to look into different ideas to go forward with, I'm calling it Ringwood Crossing because that's what you guys called it. I don't know what else to call it, Skyline Drive plan or whatever. And I'm wondering who they are and how much that is costing. And it's been so many years that the shopping center needs to be vitalized, and really nothing has been done. The garbage is worse than ever. And I think just cleaning it up right now, instead of just thinking about building housing and enlarging the footprint, makes the most sense. And as far as Stop and Shop, I can't imagine that a super Stop and Shop is going to come into Ringwood. There's one in Franklin Lakes, and there's one in Wanacue. I think the size of the Stop and Shop is perfect. It's just that it's a mess. It's dirty. The food sometimes is old, but the size of it, it's very doable. Sometimes when you go into these big super Stop and Shops, it's like, you don't even know where anything is. So I think that if you reached out, as Kathy said, that maybe Azarian wanted a letter from the town to request that there would be some kind of facelift there with the footprint that exists at this moment. And so waiting to put plans forward for Ringwood Crossing that might not even be accepted by the Highlands Council doesn't really make any sense. And as far as housing and shopping centers, West Milford just renovated their whole shopping center, and I don't see any housing there at all. They gave it a really nice facelift. And the one thing that I, moving into Ringwood, always liked about Fieldstone was that it had a low profile. It fits right into the mountain, and when it was new, it really looked good. It was made out of fieldstone and wood, and it just needs something, but nothing is happening there. I mean, even the plantings around Christmas just look dull. So something could be done to just spruce it up, I think would really help a lot. And you mentioned something about, did you say the reservoir is off the tax rolls, or maybe I misunderstood what you were saying?
You did.
You did?
No, you did misunderstand.
Yeah, I'm assuming I did. I know that they did, they.
Tax appeal.
Yeah, tax appeal. But I remember Mr. Klimek saying that because they were overassessed. So, yeah, so that was a problem there. And they're still paying, their taxes are pretty high.
Absolutely, largest taxpayer in town.
Yeah. So, and I think also, the property values, that's one thing that needs to be increased in Ringwood. And that would affect the tax base. Also, I remember Mayor Spear, you were talking one evening about the fact that maybe there could be a way that you change the tax assessment so that like the quarry, that comes to mind because they make a lot of money, they pay only $40,000 in taxes a year, but they make a lot of money. So I don't know if it's possible, you'd have to ask the tax assessor, but is there a way to assess businesses that are making a lot of money and are just paying minimum taxes, property taxes? I think that's something to look at. Because I don't know, what I see on Facebook is that nobody wants Ringwood Crossing. We don't want Ringwood to look like Wayne. We have to protect what we have. And as far as the pedestrian bridge, that's a great idea. I remember when I ran, that was one of our points that we really wanted to do over Skyline Drive. Another, I know you guys hate roundabouts, but if you had a few roundabouts coming down Skyline Drive, it would look beautiful. And people would slow down, they'd be able to get in and out of the shopping centers. It's unfortunate that you have such a backward outlook when it comes to something progressive as a roundabout. And I thought there were plans for a bike and pedestrian. Isn't there a plan for a bike and pedestrian pathways through the town that is already put together?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you wouldn't have to do that over, you have it already. You just have to figure out where
To
it's gonna-
implement it,
To
start
implement it,
implementing,
yeah. And I know there's a lot of viewpoints in Ringwood, but I think a lot of those viewpoints are on state land or reservoir land. So I don't know if you can you connect through, like, go to a lookout that's on state land and connect it to the shopping centers? I don't know. Maybe. I really don't. So, but I think we have to really focus on what Ringwood is, because there's no other town like Ringwood, and if we go changing the character of Ringwood, that just doesn't make any sense. And as far as the speed limits around the lakes, that really didn't take that long. I know that the engineer at the time was very resistant. We wanted to do it. It was something that the Democrats did, and it was important to us. And I remember being in Trenton with Councilman McAllen, and he goes, "We're going to go down to the DOT," because at that point you had to go through the DOT. And they had said, no, you couldn't do it, and, so he said, let's go in and meet with them, go in and speak. And within a few weeks after that, speed limits were lowered to 25 around the lakes. So I think it's something you can do simultaneously. The tonnage and the speed limits makes a lot of sense, and it would make the people in Stonetown very happy. And what was the amount of the debt service for this month on the water budget?
$80,000.
How much?
It's not just this month, that's the payment.
Oh, the payment for what's the period?
I don't have that with me.
Oh.
$88,100 is the bill.
I'm sorry, I'm not hearing you.
$88,100 is the
I didn't know
bill.
whether you said 88 or 38. Okay. Yeah, I know the debt service is very high in the water department, extremely high, because the water budget's only $1.5 million, I think. Okay. At the last meeting, I was talking about the fact that the borough entered into a term sheet with Ford in 2013, which was signed by Mr. Heck, and where they agreed to monitor the water instead of doing something more aggressive to the groundwater and the water in the mines in the shaft, which is highly contaminated. And Scott, you had said that you were going to bring it and maybe read it because you didn't remember it the way I did. So I brought it myself. And it says exactly what I did say at the last meeting. It was signed on November 5th, 2013. And the point to remember is that the record of decision for the groundwater has still not been issued. But you went into an agreement with Ford in 2013 without even knowing what was going to happen from the EPA. We still don't know. It's due out this year. I don't know when. It's there's a lot of things going on there because with the 1,4-dioxane. So, anyway, the term sheet says, I'm not going to read the whole thing because it's 6 pages. Within 60 days of the execution of the second term sheet, in return for a broad general release by the borough set forth below, and you can get this actually on Ringwood Facts. If you look under documents, you can read all the timesheets. They're not that complicated. It lays it all out. In return for a broad general release by the borough set forth below, Ford shall pay the borough $2 million. Number 2, if the U.S. EPA selects a capping remedy for OCDA, the borough agrees to record deed restrictions on the site properties owned by the borough, create reuse opportunities for the borough's residents at the location of the current recycling center. 3, maintain and operate a new recycling center and take future actions to allow for capping remedies and monitored natural attenuation. Remedy to be implemented in as timely and cost-effective manner as possible, and Ford shall pay the borough $2.5 million. So all those things that have happened, I understand you guys have $4.5 million in escrow, although you did use some of that to publish Ringwood Facts during the election. I think that was at least $30,000. It might have been more when it was all said and done. The Ringwood Facts that are published are definitely cherry-picked. They're not 100% accurate. Sorry to say. So that is the term sheet that the borough agreed to, that Mr. Heck signed on November 5th, 2013. And it's unfortunate because we don't even know what's going on with the groundwater yet. And the fact of the shaft, I mean, there's issues out there. There's remedies that are being proposed by Ford. We don't know what the EPA is going to say, but that they will be presenting their opinions at the next CAG meeting, which will be in March. I think that's it. Oh, yeah, no. All right, thanks.
Anyone else wish to get up?
Hi, my name is Jennifer Ryan Shue, and I live at 205 Lakeview Avenue in Ringwood. I just had one question in the discussion of the revitalization program, and apparently you've made, writing your letter, you've made some outreach, and so plan on going ahead and judging and giving your remarks at the end of the meeting. I was just wondering, what are the plans or what you consider doing in terms of involving more of the community in developing a plan that meets everyone's needs, and how the community might see the various suggestions that are on the table before some decisions are made about what suggestions are going to be adopted.
That's all these folks' job. That's what, whatever mechanism they want to do to get the community input, I'm encouraging.
So that would be my question then for everyone, and not just for you then. If there could be a plan where the community is made aware of what.
Public meetings.
And how would those meetings be arranged? Where might they take place?
They take place here, or most likely here, or any place else.
And would they be would people be allowed to consider what options are being discussed before decisions are made about which options are going to be proposed to the community? In other words, ideas are put on the table, and then some decisions are made, about what options are going to be considered. And I'm just wondering at what point the community might be brought in to participate.
First, just to go back a little, the general concept was announced at a general meeting to the public. The plans were laid out. There was public input. Experts on behalf of Mr. Dunn, on behalf of the borough, explained everything, and the council approved the general concept. With the, you'll see a resolution authorizing professionals to go forward with the general concept. Okay, that is being worked on now. When that is finalized, that'll be when that general concept, I have to give you some background. We're in the middle of litigation, a constitutional litigation. The Supreme Court has ordered municipalities to have this affordable housing component. Okay? So we're trying to meet a constitutional obligation, and it's been very difficult because there are groups that want to impose a very heavy obligation on the municipality, and we're resisting it. Not that we want to avoid it, but we think it's unduly burdensome. And we have to find a place for it. Under the Highlands, you are restricted as to where you can develop. You have to basically develop on already developed property. Basically, I'm generalizing, but that's it. And that is the shopping center. So the general plan presented at the meeting was a mixed use of the shopping centers. It's general. In other words, it doesn't say the shopping center must do A, B, C, but it says it provides there'll be a certain amount of housing. We haven't determined that yet either, because that's part of the dispute in court as to how many units. We want a reasonable amount. Other people want a lot that we think is far from reasonable. Okay, and then we're also want to give the shopping center owners the opportunity to change their formats if they want to. It's entirely voluntary on their part. No one's imposing anything. They're offering an option. It's like an overlay zone. When that is finally worked out, when the concept is worked out, in other words, when we have satisfied one group, the Fair Share Housing Council that is pushing for a lot of housing in Ringwood and other places, okay? We have satisfied that group, and we have satisfied the courts have a master, and there are interveners, there are other people who want to develop, believe it or not, and there's a lot of opposition on our part to them. We do not think their plans suit Ringwood, okay? Then that'll all be represented at public hearings, the council will comment, public will comment, and then we will finalize it one way or the other, okay? But again, it's just general right now. But the components would be, just so you know, because of the constitutional restraint, housing, okay? Flexible plans for how the shopping center owners want to handle their property, okay? Nothing would be coercive. It would be entirely voluntary. Here is an opportunity if they think it's worthwhile, or some other entrepreneur thinks it's worthwhile. They would take it from there. Now we're talking about approximately 20 acres out of the 18,000 in the borough. It's a very restricted area that we're talking about if we have to satisfy that constitutional obligation. And we want to, if we have to satisfy, we want to do it intelligently, okay? Where the housing satisfies our obligation, but it's a reasonable amount, and done in a reasonable fashion, okay? The shopping center owners have a chance, if they want to revitalize, to change, to do whatever they want with their shopping centers. Maybe to modernize and whatever they think they do, or sell it to someone who wants to do it. And it would also finally increase the tax base. Okay, they're the elements we're going at. They're all fluid elements right now. Okay, nothing is fixed in stone. But this is. But remember, we're in litigation. Okay, we have judges overlooking us. So we're balancing a lot of balls, we're tossing and juggling a lot of balls here to come out with, we hope, is satisfactory to everybody. So that'll be, it's been a preliminary announcement, I think in August of 18 or 17, was that our hearing? About a year and a half ago, 2 years ago. Okay, and then we are commissioned professionals to carry out the council's ideas, and we've been doing that. We're ready to finalize, we think, the culmination of their ideas, okay? But as I said, there are interveners in this suit that do not agree with us, that want to impose heavier burdens, and we are resisting that. And I can't give you the end game, but it'll be announced. The public will know, and the public will have their input.
Well, I'm just hoping that the public will have a chance to participate all along,
Well,
as much as they can.
We had the public hearing. I don't know if you were here at the public hearing, where the initial plan was announced, and we were authorized to go forward. But it'll come out again. It'll come to the council, of course, and then to the public.
Okay, thank you.
Tall, 24 High Point Lane. Has Ringwood been mandated to build a certain amount of affordable housing?
That's what the suit is about.
I
The suit is about
understand.
establishing a mandate.
And you are throwing around the number of
thousands of units for Ringwood?
No, we are not.
What's the number that you're saying?
We are not.
What's the number?
The number as publicly announced was
Yeah.
approximately 150 to 170 covering.
150?
Excuse me.
Okay.
150, 170 units covering both shopping centers. That was the figure publicly announced. Now,
That you
wait,
and-
wait,
that-
let me finish. You asked
Sure.
the question, okay?
Yeah.
Now,
Go ahead.
there are interveners and parties who would like a lot more, and that's where the.
But they
fight
can't
is.
get 'em.
Well, that's our job. to
Aren't
have
you
that.
in,
Excuse
aren't
me,
you
let-
in
let- let
litigation
me
with the
finish.
interveners?
Yes. Yes, there's a-
You've joined them.
Yes, we had to by law.
You did? We
didn't join them.
What
They joined the suit. They joined us.
They joined you because they want to develop their land, which is not developable. They entered into the lawsuit. They're not joining our defense. They're joining the case with the state of New Jersey or whatever this entity
Fair
is
Share
against
Housing
us. Yes. It's not that they've joined the case. That doesn't mean they've joined a particular party. That's a
They're representing
distinction
their own
that's
interests.
significant. But you do understand that one of the property owners purchased his land after the Highlands Act was enacted.
We
He-
understand that.
You do.
Of
And so
course
does
we
the
do.
Highlands Act.
Yeah, of
So
course we do.
I don't understand why you are not partnering with the Highlands Council. That's what you should be doing, because they are going to represent Ringwood and help Ringwood. So the COA is not going to be 150 or 170 units.
Well,
Because
have
we
excuse
we
me,
just
have
can't do
experts-
that.
We have experts who respectfully disagree with your analysis of our obligation, okay?
Well, one
All
of
right.
the things.
Join
that
up with the
I-
Highlands Council, because they're they have the final say.
And by the way,
sorry.
by the way, we will submit our final plans, if it ever gets to that stage, to the Highlands Council.
It's going to be
Okay,
an
all right.
uphill battle. Sewers were voted down in Ringwood many, many years ago. Nobody wants them. And the Highlands, Ringwood is a special place, and you should be protecting that.
I think I should add to the executive session, I want to explain things, so that there's a misunderstanding here, and I don't want to give away litigation strategies, okay? So I'm going to add an element, the Fair Share Housing suit, make that part of the executive session, so I can explain things, because there's a terrible misunderstanding here, okay?
Well, I do
All
know
right.
that West Milford is
Okay.
just doing wait and see, and they're also in the Highlands, 100%. So that's what Ringwood should be doing. Thanks.
Let me
Do we need an amended resolution
Yes, we'll
of?
do that, as soon as this part of the session is over.
I'd like to move to close public. See none?
I got nothing to say, sorry.
Rich Eversbach, 120 Upper Lakeview Ave. Just regarding the budget issues and lack of revenues, it's my understanding that if we weren't in the Highlands Act 100%, we may not be facing the degree of difficulties that we are right now. Thanks.
Thank you. All right. Can I have a motion to close public?
Seeing no one else, motion to close.
Do you have a second?
Yeah, you had March.
Second.
Roll call?
Hold on. She's gonna go.
All right.
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Yes.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
Okay.
I'll do a resolve that the executive session agenda be amended to include the affordable housing suit, subject to the same regulations, the same conditions. To your motions.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call?
Mayor Martucci?
Yes.
Deputy Mayor Noonan?
Yes.
Councilmembers Bolton?
Yes.
Davison?
Yes.
Moretti?
Yes.
O'Keefe?
Yes.
Spear?
Yes.
So that's gonna be, 71 to add it?
Got it. Thank you.
Yeah.
Nope, not yet. You gonna go around the room, Mayor, or do you want me to address
All right.
any of these things briefly?
I would like to speak to some of the things that were stated tonight, too, if
All
I
right,
could
but
have an
here's
opportunity, Mayor.
the deal, members of the council. Okay, we have a very lengthy executive session, so I would implore you to keep your comments to a minimum if possible tonight, because we're gonna be here till 12 o'clock. Okay? Is that right?
Would like to not be here till 12 o'clock. So in terms of, and this is brief, but related to revenue opportunities, not a silver bullet, the completion of the rehab center, and knowing that they are now on the tax rolls when previously they had not been, know that they're going through restructuring, reorg, bankruptcy. Did they make their fourth quarter tax payment?
I believe they did. They're not in bankruptcy.
Oh, for reorganization or whatever.
They're, yeah, they did some type of reorganization, but they're not. Yeah, so they did make they are current on their payments.
The way that our...
You gotta talk to the mic, because I can't
Oh,
really hear
sorry. And the way our abandoned properties ordinance reads, is there any sort of provision for, work that starts and then stops? Is it only residential? Is there any?
There's no provision.
No provision, okay.
No, that ordinance only covers mortgages where a mortgage company has taken over the property or filed a suit for residential properties.
Because if there's any fire that we can light under them, obviously it's in their own interest to complete it and start to get people in there, but if there's anything that we can do to help chase them and move that project along, aside from it being an eyesore on a beautiful building, it's been stalled for quite some time, and obviously we would love to see them complete it and pay us more. In terms of the energy audit, and I'm getting deja vu, so I'm pretty sure that I brought this up either last meeting or the meeting before. The additional information that they want for the energy audit in terms of model number and that level of detail, that is not something that we could get from the inventory that the auditor or the consulting firm is doing for us?
No, that's just merely an item with a tag number on it to identify this printer is item number 62 on your list. It's very different.
When they're tagging it, could we ask them to capture it? Okay. Have to ask.
You need to have some knowledge in order to get some of that information.
Fill that out. Okay. And then in a completely different direction, I'm sorry to hear about Elise, but related to the library, in your conversations with them, this is probably pie in the sky, or maybe it changed over the years. The fact that the library has no hours on Sunday is a bit of a missed opportunity for families and people who work during the week to take advantage of it. So if in the hiring search, or as they look at their budget, if there's any way that they could open for even just Sunday afternoon, I think that would be great.
I've asked that in the past, and it hasn't worked out, but I'll ask again.
I'll leave it at that.
Right?
Two things. I become aware indirectly that the Church of the Good Shepherd is having some financial difficulties. So there is a GoFundMe to help the church. If any of our residents want to step up and help them out, that would be fantastic. Also, I know we do look, as we've spoken about earlier in this meeting, to use other facilities for community activities. Obviously, they don't have a basketball court or sports facilities, but if there was something that we could maybe reach out to them and see if they wanted to do something where we rented from them, and we could help them by doing so, that would be great. I just wanted to bring that up. And the other thing, kind of out of left field maybe, but it's a personal thing, and I have a feeling it affects many people. The traffic light at the church there at Erskine Road and Skyline Drive, I find that maybe it could use 5 more seconds of green coming from Erskine Road. Maybe I'm crazy. I think a lot of people are going to find they feel that way too. It would allow 5 seconds, I'm saying, but I know as you're coming to that light, it just you see it go green and then it goes red, and you're like, I didn't make it. But like that extra 5 seconds might be a big deal. It's another
4 more seconds of the
I
yellow.
don't know what it. Yeah, I don't know. Well, hey,
Listen,
know.
sometimes those lights go out of adjustment, I can get an engineer to look at it.
Thank you very much. That's all I have for tonight.
Kathy?
Yeah, when it comes to the downtown redevelopment, I think that we should be more open and transparent with the community on what's going on. This is a pet project that you started way before the fair share housing element came into being. And I think the council has spent upwards of $250,000 on planners, engineers, experts, so to speak, to pursue this endeavor already. As far as the high-density housing on Skyline Drive and the fair share housing, we know that all the other municipalities in New Jersey are spending huge sums of money to fight this development. And Republican Assembly Leader John Bradnick said it's because it's going to have a direct impact on schools and on our traffic. So it's really, we're doing the opposite, which to me doesn't seem to be a good plan. We say it's our constitutional duty to pursue this housing, but that's not what the other towns in New Jersey are doing. We spent a lot of tax dollars on this project, and I keep hearing that rateables, this is gonna be the solution. That's a false narrative. It isn't a solution. In fact, even Governor Christine Whitman, maybe if I talk from a Republican perspective, you'll understand it better. But she has told us that too many towns bend over backwards to pursue development, hoping it will balance their budgets. In the process, they strain not only their backs, but also the services needed to support this development. The result is a double whammy: less open space and higher property taxes. Overdevelopment increases sprawl and forces property tax increases to pay for the additional services needed for an increased population. New Jersey is a textbook example of this phenomenon. We're the most densely populated state in the country, and if more development meant lower taxes, we would enjoy the lowest taxes in the country. Of course, the opposite is true. What we need is to celebrate what we have here in the Highlands and what they protected, because as the rest of the state is consumed by sprawl and growth, we here in the Highlands can see our property values rise as people recognize us as uncongested and open space. And we haven't really even explored that. When we keep it a secret, what we keep a secret is everything that we have to offer, which I'm so glad that the Economic Development Commission is up and running. And we recently heard from the West Milford Economic Development Committee, and they wrote to us saying that they heard that we had our first meeting in January and that ecotourism was one of the first items that was on our agenda. So they're saying that they want to work with us to explore the path to becoming a designated marketing organization, and that getting grants that could help us. The first step is they're going to be meeting with Carl Rico, who is the chairman of the Highlands Commission, and they're going to bring us together with them to start discussing ways that we can make this a destination and to celebrate what we have and to let people know that coming to Ringwood is desirable, and this will increase property values as people recognize everything Ringwood has to offer. And increased property values lead to increase in rateables.
Why, let me just ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
Why do companies go out of business?
Why do companies go out of business? Many factors.
Right. Lots of times it's because of lack of sales, lack of, of sales of they're producing something, okay, and they don't have enough money to pay the payroll, pay the insurances, etc. What we're looking at, and everything you said is all good, okay, and I said this before, we have to keep an open mind, because are you willing to bet the next 3, 6, 9 years, the Finance Committee is already struggling with this year's budget. if we have to start cutting personnel, police, garbage pickup, all that type of stuff, because we don't have the revenue coming in, okay, that is gonna be a detriment. So we have to think of all the good stuff, but at the same time, we have commitments, personnel and services we are providing for the residents. And right at this moment, okay, we have $1 million budget gap that we have to try to meet. Next year, because the third year of the tax bill kicks in, it's gonna be bigger, okay? We don't have the flow, and all this stuff is good, but it's gonna take a number of years to take place, so we have to look at a combination of both, because what else do we do? Do we just let everybody go and close the town down,
That
go
would
bankrupt?
be ridiculous to do something
I
like
know,
that.
but
What
I-
I'm saying is that the solution you're proposing isn't a solution. It's not going to bring us an increase in rateables, it's gonna bring us an increase in cost. And when you have more people and more services, that costs more money. We're gonna drive up our taxes, not reduce our taxes. Christine Whitman laid it out pretty well here, saying that it's really not. In fact, why don't we have our tax assessor come up here and explain to us how it works? Because what you've been perpetuating for many years now is that the Highlands is a terrible thing, that is really a detriment to our community. When in fact, it's protected our lake communities, our lakes, and it's kept the character of Ringwood beautiful. Building high-density housing on Skyline Drive isn't gonna solve this community's problems. It's just gonna open a whole new chapter of new problems. And therefore, I would like to see revitalization of the downtown shopping center. I think everybody in this community would. And one story above that would be fine, I think, just like down by Goldberg's Bagels. That would be something that I think the community would welcome. But before we start spending upwards of $250,000 on plans and engineers and everyone, why don't we get the input from the Erskine Lake community, from the Fieldstone community back in that area, to see how this is gonna impact their life and what they think about this?
First of
Have
all,
they
you're
ever
making a
been bought
mistake.
into that?
The $250,000 is to defend a lawsuit. It's not, so let's not pretend that this is done for design. These designs and the legals all
Well, I
relative to the
haven't really
lawsuit.
gotten all the,
But that was a
the-
very definitive statement, and that's not accurate. I don't want people
Okay,
to
well, I
think.
think that I haven't gotten it. I've been asking since January for this information so I could go through it. You
We
just
actually had
gave
the
it to
information,
me
you didn't have the
tonight.
detailed bills. You've had the
Right,
spreadsheet for a
so
long time.
I haven't had a chance to go through it all, but I know that we've been spending a lot of money. And I feel very strongly that this is a false narrative that you've been proposing for many years. And I would like to have a tax expert come in and explain it to us, how it's gonna work, and how this is gonna relieve our tax burden, before I can buy into it. Because right now, I'm looking at other people that are telling me, this is not, it's a double whammy, according to Christine Todd Whitman, that we are
Christine
going
Todd-
to,
Christine
if
Todd
we
Whitman
pursue.
has been the governor here for years.
No, she hasn't.
Okay, so.
But the increased development throughout our
We have-
state
we
has
have-
not reduced our
okay.
taxes.
I think we need more information on the code requirements and some of the, we're gonna talk about it in executive
Yes.
session, so.
Mayor, I didn't talk about high-density housing. I talked about revitalization, whatever form this council
No, I'm
thinks that
not
needs to
saying-
come in. No, by no means did I suggest high-density housing. I've lived here for a long time. But what I did suggest is, we can't wait until we hit the wall to react. That's what I'm suggesting. And I don't know that I would follow Governor Christie Todd Whitman's financial plan as she pillaged the pensions and left it broke in the state of New Jersey. So I don't know that she's any financial wizard.
She's not a financial wizard, and yes, she did do that. And the fact of the matter is, though, I would like to have a tax expert come here to this council to explain to us how this is going to help us with our rate bills. Because right now, I have seen with my own eyes what's happened across New Jersey with overdevelopment, and it hasn't led to lower property taxes in any corner of this state. And this is going to be a really difficult year for every resident of New Jersey with the new SALT requirements. I don't know if you've done your taxes yet, but everybody in New Jersey is taking a big hit. So before we make a mistake, I would like to really get an expert in here to explain it to us,
Well-
how that's going to work.
We still need, right now, to solve $1 million budget gap, so. and-
Right, but
and-
this
And
isn't-
probably a $1 million budget gap next year. And, okay, so while we're doing all this discussing, we still have lack of funds coming in to pay the expenses that are going out, which means we're gonna have to start cutting. Okay, and then the residents will be unhappy, so we have to argue and discuss this and then come to a common ground.
Yes,
But
I agree. We have
I don't
to-
wanna take up a
Any
lot-
more time here.
Any more
Okay.
time.
Maybe we could put like a work session
Yeah,
block
work
on a
session
future
together.
meeting agenda, whether it's
Yes.
March or April, just dedicate time earlier in the evening.
That's a good
for this
idea.
kind of conversation.
All right, John?
You're gonna cut me short, Jim?
No.
If you double the value of the shopping centers, you will generate double the tax from it. It's a pretty direct type of relationship. It's relatively clear. If those properties are higher in value than they are today, they get taxed more. And that's how we would get more revenue from that. It's pretty direct. If you can visualize how ecotourism can actually provide additional tax revenue to the town, which is still a mystery to me, and I've heard about it for 12 years or so. If you can tell me how that works, I haven't seen any reliable models that work, but actually increasing the value of property does work. Now, we should be careful. Everybody's property value is rising does not do it for us because we have a limited pool. There's 4,400 properties or so. So if we say that everybody's property goes up 10% and our budget goes up a certain amount as well, we're still spreading out our budget increase amongst the same tax base. We have to expand the tax base. That is what we're looking to do here. We looked at this and we started looking at this years ago because these shopping centers are pretty much at the end of their useful life. They're going to fall down. We have to take a look and see what is the maximum that these properties can sustain. So that's where we're going. What could we possibly build here? And that's why you have professionals looking at it, planners and engineers and architects, to see what the properties can sustain. Also, we have to take a look at the wastewater, because wastewater is a big deal. Wastewater is failing in these places here, or at least in the Fieldstone Center. That's not working well at all. And there's a couple other things. We can pick up Robert Erskine School. We have the St. Catherine's School down there. We might be able to pick up something. We might be able to do something better for the environment instead of discharging all this stuff down to Skyline Lake. So that was a possibility that's opened up when you take a look at what this kind of redevelopment is going to entail. If you're looking at 150 total units, you might be looking at somewhere between 15 to 20 school kids maximum. It's going to be coming nowhere near close to what our schools actually have the capacity to sustain. Our school enrollment's been going down every year, so there shouldn't really be too much cost. I don't know if the marginal cost to educate a child is in that $15,000 or $20,000 range. I think if you just slide another kid into the seat, you probably aren't going to pick up too many fixed costs. But it shouldn't be that big a concern. Also, traffic. In order to make Ringwood a tourist destination that would be able to generate the kind of revenue that would stabilize our increasing taxes, you're gonna have a lot of traffic go with that. That's just, it's just by nature. I don't know how do you get tourists without traffic? So we're gonna have traffic one way or the other. We have to take a look at all these things, and we have to say what is feasible and what is not. I agree, we do need to have somebody come in and tell us, well, no, we should have somebody just give us a round, you know, just some pointers on how this all works. You know, I'm fine with the EDC. I would like to see what they come up with. I think we're wasting time. I do. They've had a role. There was good people in it, and there's just not that much there. We have to work. I don't mind out of the box thinking, but we have boxes such as what's legal and what is you know, what's possible and what's economically useful. There are boxes we have to think in. I don't know if spending money on a advertising campaign is really going to get us anywhere. So we should talk about it quite a bit more. We have to. We have to. We can't waste time on this anymore. We can't lose time. This is going to take years to unfold if we can get everything to work. And every year the budget's going to get worse. Every year. You said salt deduction.
It's getting
How about
worse
this? How about this?
all over New Jersey.
So the state reduces Ringwood's school aid by $1 million over the next 7 years, reduces Lakeland's school aid by $2 million over the next 7 years, and spends $2 million to give illegal aliens free community college this year. That's, so if we want to complain about SALT, we can also say, hey, you know what, our state isn't really helping us out either, that much, you know. But we have to just deal with the cards that are in front of us and play it out as best we can. And we have to take a look at getting something done in that shopping center. The Highlands Act is important because the Highlands Act tells us that we are not going to have overdevelopment. This is going to, as the counselor said, there's 20 acres in the center of town. There might be another couple acres down at the south end of town, over by Skyline Lakes Drive and 511 down there, that might be eligible. There might be some other spots that are eligible further up 511. But there will not be, this town cannot look like Wayne. It will never happen. The regulations do not allow that. Also, the Highlands Act did not save our lakes. Every property around our lakes is exempted from the Highlands Act. It's a single-family home, that was there before August 10th of 2004. It's an exempted use, so it didn't save nothing changed as far as that goes. The Highlands Act really didn't do us any particular favors. It did take some development pressure off us, but at that time, you know, there's been downturns in the construction industry and the residential housing industry that, you know, and we never even saw how the actual stormwater rules were going to work before they came in with this big Highlands Act thing. So that's not a big help. It limits our abilities greatly. We have no way of trying to guide our growth. We have no growth. We haven't had growth. Last year, we cut our spending and increased our taxes because of our tax base going down. We have to right that ship. That's what we got to fix. There were a couple other things that I wanted to touch on, but I don't know. I think we're going to have some longer conversations, maybe even a special meeting or something. Yeah, there was some of that super fun stuff I wanted to talk about. I think I'll leave that alone for now. But it's largely nonsense what I heard. And with that, I'll finish for the night. We have to get into executive session, Mr. Mayor. I feel your glare upon me.
Well, there's really not much I could add to what John said.
Can I take your time?
I agree. I mean, we have problems. I'll be honest with you, I don't have the answers to those problems. So I don't know how we should deal with it, to be honest with you, Mayor. I don't know how much time you want to spend on it tonight, but I don't have any answers for you.
You said you had the answer when you came in tonight. Sean?
Okay, let's see here. It's no secret that the county portion of of your tax bill is larger than the municipal portion. I mean, just tonight alone, we sent Passaic County $6 million on a municipal budget, a total of roughly 15 million, give or take. So I can't understand why people are getting obsessed about increasing property values. Our percentage of what our obligation to the county is based on the total value of the town versus all the other towns in the county. So, I mean, I've been here since '93. My wife's family's been here since the 1930s, and extended family since before Wanacue Reservoir was even built. So then really the only really important thing, if you're really that worried about your property values, if you're selling and moving out. And I'm not going anywhere for at least another, I don't know, 5 or 6 decades, hopefully, if I last that long on this planet. So I just can't understand why people will use increasing their property values as an argument. What do we want to do? We want to obligate ourselves to send more to the county so we can get, less roads paved and fixed, and with that little disaster down there on 511. I just can't quite get it. Let's see here. Again, I can't. There is no magic bullet to this whole thing. We have to look at the big picture, like Mr. Heck said. Not one little things. Yet they do add up, but they're not going to solve our problems. They're just too great. I have a whole bunch of other things, but as far as commercial entities and the shopping centers, they spend money where they make money. You're not gonna force them. That's just capitalism in the United States. It's just where it is. I mean, a prime example in recent memory was they thought, Asbury Park was going to be the next big redevelopment. After being derelict for years, developers came in, they started building, and then the housing crisis hit, and the mortgage crisis hit, and financial crisis hit, and what did they do? They pulled out. They didn't continue building because they didn't have a market for it. I find it sad that people will say, oh, where do you go shopping? Oh, I go to ShopRite. Well, being a small business owner of mine, granted, it's not I have to work out of Ringwood, but I go to these Chamber of Commerce meetings, and the main theme is shop local, shop local. The brick and mortar is going down. Online buying is going up. I mean, it doesn't make sense. And then complain about the Stop and Shop. If they're making money, they're going to spend money there, clean it up, revitalize it. If you're going to drive over the hill and go to Oakland and go to the ShopRite, they understand that. They track that stuff. They're big corporations. They do that kind of thing. Just a couple more little points and getting off all of that stuff. Ice safety. Temperatures are weird. Lakes are in transition. Please, everybody, please be safe on the lakes. Keep an eye out for the kids, especially that want to venture out on the edges and so forth. I had the great privilege to read the proclamation at the 100th anniversary of the Board of Health. I was joined by some of my colleagues here last week, Mr. Heck, and it was great. It was a great evening, great meal up there at Skylands, and congratulations to the Board of Health of Ringwood for celebrating the 100th anniversary. What they've accomplished, and I was quite educated that night on what they were trying to accomplish 100 years ago and what was going on in the world as far as infectious diseases and so forth. It was wonderful. And finally, yay, we're number 8. Now people are going, what the hell, why would you want to be number 8? Okay, well, out of 565 municipalities, Ringwood was ranked 8th safest out of 565 in the state. It's kind of proud to be number 8.
Yeah,
Number 4. There's two different
On
studies.
Indeed.com this evening was, what's that?
There's 2 different studies, yeah. One is
There's-
8 and one is 4.
One is 8, one is 4, depending on the criteria they used. But still, in the top 10 out of 565, I'll take top 10 any day out of those odds.
Yeah. And it's gotta be just one incident that would knock us out. At that point, you're so few incidents per resident.
An interesting, I only
Take
did a
much to knock
quick,
us out.
a quick thing of a couple towns, because I was on the road a lot this week. So, in the last couple of weeks, I've been on the road a lot. I was trying to do the research as to, doing a little comparison as to the police budgets per capita versus some of the other towns in the top 10. And interestingly enough, from the couple of towns I saw, ours is much lower.
Yeah, we're going to talk about PBA.
Yeah, I know, but.
Thanks, Sean.
It's like you're a baseball owner talking up your free agents right now. It's Ixnay.
But, so, you know, thank you to our Ringwood Police Force, both present and past. Again, being in the top 10 out of that many municipalities. So on that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I just want to thank the DPW for all their hard work, along with the police department, first aid, the fire department, and the first aid during the storms. While we were home, they were out. And I just want you to keep in mind that, you know, the people lost their jobs at Markout Paper, and the police officers in New York and firemen that died through the fire or gunshots. It shows that, you know, they go out and put the uniform on every day and don't know what's going to happen when they come back. So the other thing I got is I just have like a real novel idea. I know it's election year, but if we can take our politics off and think through some of these items, you know, you can come with a critical view, but look at it through data and stuff, because we still have to form a rolling consensus moving forward. Otherwise, the problem will take care of itself. We can argue, we can look at the facts, get testimony,
Right.
but we got to at least lay the groundwork for future council and stuff like that. Otherwise, we're just kind of kicking the can down the road.
I got a few brief things, Mitch, very brief.
Okay.
Number one, I decided to create discussion tonight. I did that. Hopefully the compromise will come, but I did create discussion. You can't read one paragraph out of a 6-page document and say it's facts. So all that's nonsense. You have to read the whole document in order to mean anything. So you have to take that kind of grandstanding with a grain of salt. Read the whole document. The only other thing that I'll mention is the debt service to water. The debt service is what it takes to make your water department safe and potable water for everybody. Debt service is what the debt service is. We have to maintain our water system because it's what people drink. It's the foundation of what we all are. So you can't stand up there and make a bold statement that our debt service is too high. That's not true.
We did 2 tanks.
Yeah.
It's easy to say it. It's not factual. That's all I have, Mayor.
Could we, if the DEP were to find us for not doing the Upper Ringwood tank, would we be able to actually, would we be able to bond that, or would we have to pay that out of operating?
We have to pay that out of operating.
Okay, so I guess sooner or later, we're gonna have to just bite the bullet and pull a bond.
And I will redistribute, and mind you, I fixed the water system up from all the lack of it being fixed up before I got here. I'll redistribute the memo from the tax assessor that all of you have relative to his assessment of the property value increase. You all received it not long ago, well, maybe a couple months ago. I'll resend it. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay.
There was a motion, there was a motion earlier for executive session. You could just call executive session, Mr. Mayor.
We had to call it recording.
One last thing, and it's really brief, but St. Patrick's Day parade.
Yes.
I didn't say anything because I have no involvement in it at all, and I was sure, but we took a detour. So it's Saturday, March 23rd. It's the only one in Passaic County, but it's also important to remember that that's not underwritten by the borough, that's all volunteer and donation driven, so hopefully all residents got letters.
There'll be tickets on sale for the Unity Breakfast. It's a great breakfast and helps support the parade.
It's an important shout out.
Okay, can we move into the executive?
Yes.
Okay.